Hello and welcome back to Warhammer 40K podcast. We talk about Warhammer. We are doing part 2 of Fulgrim tonight. It's gonna be full of twists and turns and wiggly things trying to infest your body. Serpentine creatures will, yeah, one of those kind of episodes. So buckle up, strap in, as they say, before they go to town. Yeah. Yeah, we're doing a Fulgrim episode, so it should be pretty fun. Some silly jokes, I'm sure. I'm your host, Mark. We also got joining me is Christian.
Hey, I'm on the wrong day and the wrong time, but I'm here anyways. I just stumbled
Yeah,
into this chat room.
yeah. We also have joining us is Gerald.
Hello and good evening.
So before we get into the episode, let's do some housekeeping. Come join the Discord. We got a lot of fun things going on there. Join the Patreon. We're almost at the spot where we can start affording to do some Discord contests, maybe $50 draws or something like that. Come join the Discord. Shoot me a message if you want to do stuff like that. We're getting closer to the amount we need on the Patreon, though. So
Fantastic. And just speaking of join the Patreon, for only $2.50 per month, you get access to the live stream. Sorry, wrong one. You get access to ad-free versions on Spotify. $5 is the live stream. My apologies.
But
yeah,
My cats are already possessed by Slaanesh. This is going to be a crazy night. So yeah, come join the Patreon. Join the Imperium Tide because Emperor Marcus wants you to join and not Slaanesh. So give all your excess to him, not to. Anyways,
if you can, try to put those dollar bills into Mark's waistband too while you're at it. Yeah, speaking of live streams, you can join. Also, a benefit to joining the Patreon is you get access to these live streams. So you get in a live chat room during the show, and you can even call in and be a guest as part of the episode. So if you want to talk to us,
and the three of us are shirtless right now, so like it's definitely worth checking the live stream to see shirtless Christian and Gerald and Mark.
if only that were true. That's how you get them in the. That's how you get them in the chat room, and then they realize it's not what was advertised.
Idiots, I lied to you. I lured you into a dark spot of the internet. Cool. Yeah, well, today, man, we are doing part 2. I'm excited to talk about Fulgrim. When I was digesting the episode from the other day, I kind of took away a couple things that I kind of summed up where I'm like, okay, I like that. That's kind of getting me going. Overall, he's not my favorite, but he's not the worst. He has some interesting things happening. So we'll give you a little recap of last episode. Fulgrim, one of the Emperor's Primarchs, one of the sons of the Emperor, he fell on the planet of Chemos. And this was like a mining world that he built back up. It was like this poverty-stricken mining world. Everything's fallen apart. Their STC must have broken eons ago. And he, through some new inventions, through some cool managerial skills, he makes this mining world into a very rich and successful trading planet. He eventually turns it into kind of a planet full of wealth and art, and it's pretty opulent. The planet has that much wealth that it's mining off there. So that's kind of where he's from. Fulgrim, he from an early age kind of shows to be driven and to be everything he does, he tries to pour his all into and think of every possible angle. During the Great Crusade, he kind of did much of the same thing. When invading planets, he would plan the perfect strategy on how to do it, and everyone in his battle line would have to follow that perfectly to the precise movement. Eventually, as the Crusade passed on, Fulgrim found a sword, a very shiny sword from an alien Xenos race, and he fell in love with this sword. And this sword happened to be a demon sword, and now it starts to whisper at him. And we decided that this demon sword sounds kind of like this. I'll get my voice ready so we can summon it throughout the show. Hey, Fulgrim, I think you're a pretty neat guy. You want to go do some genocide with me? It's kind of innocent, but this sword's always whispering sweet nothings into Fulgrim's ear.
It's a voice you can trust.
Yeah, man, I like you, Christian. You got a good judge of character on you, the sword says to you. And this sword eventually even extends its corruption to all of the Emperor's children. It was a pretty small legion, just due to some genetic things that happened. Yeah, that happened very on, but it was kind of rebuilt. But it affected this whole legion, and eventually, yeah, they slowly got seduced by Slaanesh into more excess. Um, and then finally, the drop site massacre happens, where Horus reveals he's going to turn traitor, and he chose his favorite men. Fulgrim was one among them, and they bunkered down, and loyalists dropped and started to invade. And that's kind of where we left off. We left off at the drop site massacre 5, not the first time it happens, but the second one. And Ferrus Manus is engaging Fulgrim on the field of battle. As the fiery heat of battle raged across the desolate plains of Istvan 5, Ferrus Manus, the unyielding Primarch of the Iron Hands, looked upon his once brother Fulgrim with a mixture of incredulity and disdain. The Emperor's son had fallen so far, his once pristine ideals corrupted by the treachery of Horus, the War Master. Ferrus, consumed with righteous fury, condemned his brother for the blasphemous path he had chosen, a path of rebellion and betrayal. He believed Fulgrim had lost all sense of reason, for Horus had already been defeated. His forces scattered, his doom certain. The power of the other 4 Space Marine legions would soon crush any hopes of victory for the traitors. So yeah, at this point, in the story, there's 4 legions on the ground, and then the Emperor has 4 legions to go meet them, and then another 3 is reinforcement. So we're right in the middle of this reinforcement where the first Loyalist 4 are going to get reinforced. The legions there are quite a few. We got like Horus and the Emperor's, Horus and the Sons of Horus. Then we got Angron and the World Eaters. We got the Emperor's Children and Fulgrim, and there's one other one. Is it Mortarion and his legion?
It's a Death Guard, yeah.
Yeah.
It's either the Death Guard or the Iron Warriors.
I think the Iron Warriors were they part of the reinforcement group or no?
They were.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
They were.
So, and then that's the first group of loyalists that we have. We have the Raven Guard, we have the Salamanders, we have the Iron Hands, and we have the one other one.
I like that you're doing this from memory.
Yeah, this wasn't in the...
It's the Alpha Legion, Mark.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Thanks, Demon Sword. I'm a good boy, right?
You're welcome.
Yeah, so this battle's huge. They're in the middle of like this huge, massive engagement that I've just thrown you guys into, where there's upwards of 60,000 Marines in the battle. Just huge numbers. Fulgrim, however, smiled with unshakable confidence, his heart filled with the knowledge of a far greater truth than his brother could see. He had already tasted the bitter fruits of betrayal, but it was Ferrus who was blind, still clinging to the naive hopes of victory that would never come. You are the one who is blind, brother, Fulgrim spoke, his voice low with a murmur of contempt, as he gestured toward the northern edge of the Urgral Depression. It is you and your loyalists who will soon be undone. Yeah, my voice for Primarch translation is just primo. I make an excellent.
Just imagine it as better.
Yeah, exactly. And Ferrus, gazing upon the horizon, saw that the vast might of the newly arrived force, greater than the one that had already launched the initial attack, now poised for battle, weapons raised. The true betrayal was revealed. The second wave of Astartes has arrived, not as saviors, but as vengeful traitors, ready to seal the fate of the loyalists. From their fortress on the edge of the Urgal Depression, the traitors launched their hellish assault. A flare shot into the sky, casting a bloody red glow upon the battlefield, as the hidden legions revealed their true allegiances. The deception was complete. The hollowed warriors of the Raven Guard and Salamanders who had fought so valiantly in the first wave now found themselves caught in the jaws of a trap they had not anticipated. As the bolter fire and missiles rained down upon them, the ranks of the loyalist legions were shattered in moments. The very Astartes that they had thought of as allies, the second waves now turned their guns on them, sowing the destruction with brutal efficiency. Yeah, I remember reading this book too, and like how often they're all just so caught off guard with their brothers turning on each other. The thought of the first like Horus and the first 4 legions falling, that was enough. That was already hard to wrap your mind around. And then he gets another 3 to join him, and then another couple along the way. And every time it's like, we did not think that there is this many traitors out there.
Yeah, and it's the way they set up the battlefield to be in the traitors' favor, right? They send the loyalists as like the first wave of the assault. So then when their backup shows up, their backup is behind them. And so now they're caught between the first traitors they're fighting and now the second wave behind them. So they're just getting annihilated.
And it was also like they picked the legions that they knew they could handle. Like the Ultramarines were set off to go somewhere. The Dark Angels were set off to go somewhere else. The Space Wolves were busy dealing with the Thousand Sons on Prospero. So he basically got rid of all the stronger legions to then just surround and pick off the smaller ones.
Yeah, let's put the Legion known for stealth operations, the Raven Guard, into trench warfare. That'll get rid of them. Put them up against the Death Guard, you know. Yet Ferris, undeterred by the carnage unfolding around him, locked his gaze on Fulgrim, his rage burning hotter than the forges of Medusa. A primal fury gripped him, and with a roar he hurled himself at his brother, the sword Fireblade held high. Attack, Fulgrim, attack! Fulgrim, ever poised and elegant, took his weapon Forgebreaker, and the two Primarchs met in a cataclysmic clash. Their weapons forged in an era of brotherhood were now the instruments of vengeance. The sound of their mighty blows resonated like thunder across the battlefield. The fiery blade of Ferris clashing against the ebony-hafted warhammer of Fulgrim. Their war cry echoed through their smoke and blood, their strikes devastating, each one a testament to the depths of the hatred and that had twisted their once strong bond.
Mark, I wasn't here for the first episode, but did you touch on their weapons?
Yeah, we did talk about the whole trade and how
Yeah.
one was forged, and
The
we got into
significance of
that
that,
whole scene.
yeah.
Yeah. I guess that was the other thing. You know, I kind of always knew about, like in my summary, I didn't talk about the brotherhood that he had, that we talked a lot about in the last episode with Ferris Manus. You know, they saved each other's lives a couple times and did a couple back and forth, so good times.
Yeah, they're the embodiment.
Until it wasn't.
They're the embodiment of that meme of like the two muscled arms of like. Is that from Predator or from?
Yeah.
Yeah, Predator.
Yeah, Predator.
For what felt like an eternity, the two titans of war fought with the fury of betrayed brothers. Their armors dented and scorched. The clash of their weapons sparked flashes of lightning as they traded blow for blow, each strike with more desperate than the last. Their hatred was palpable, their resolve unwavering as they fought for their ideas, now violently at odds. But even as Ferris fought on, grimly determined to end this, Fulgrim's hand was caught in the grasp of the demon's blade, an instrument of dark power he had drawn from the temple of the Laer. As Fulgrim struggled to hold his grip, a moment of clarity washed over him. In that instant, he realized with heartbreaking certainty the price of his choices and the weight of betrayal. He had descended so far, manipulated by the dark powers of chaos. The demon's blade had corrupted him, and his every action, every decision had been driven by a force far beyond his control. "Ha ha, Fulgrim, you're my bitch now," the sword says.
Don't make me send a bad word to Slaanesh now.
His mind screamed to release the sword, but it was too late. The power of the blade surged around him, and with a tragic swing, Fulgrim's weapon cleaved through the flesh and bone of his brother. Ferris fell to his knees, the agony of betrayal written across his features. Fulgrim, staring across his brother's lifeless body, was consumed by horror. The overwhelming truth of his fall descended upon him like a crushing weight. We were talking a lot on the other episode how tragic his story was. You know, he didn't necessarily want to go to chaos. He was definitely manipulated into it. He was even liked by his brother Primarchs, had a couple good friendships, including this guy. But ultimately, he had to take responsibility. He just cut his brother's head off. So pretty regretful.
It happens.
Mm-hmm.
It happens. I asked the other guys, how many times have you fought and killed one of your brothers? And the answers will disturb you. But how about you guys?
Why do you think I'm an only son?
There can be only one.
In the silence that followed, Fulgrim stood over the body of Ferris Manus, stunned by the revelation that had taken hold of him. He had become the very thing he once sought to destroy. A traitor, a murderer, a brother lost. The weight of his actions was unbearable. It was then that the voice of the demon whispered promises of oblivion, offering Fulgrim the escape he so desperately craved. In his grief, and blinded by his guilt, he succumbed to the whisper of temptation. The demon, now fully freed from the prison of the blade, surged into Fulgrim's body, claiming it as its own. Within the depths of his own mind, the true Fulgrim was imprisoned, his consciousness trapped in a psychic prison, powerless to stop the horrifying transformation. And so it was once proud Primarch of the Emperor's Children, a shining example of pride and perfection, was consumed by darkness, his soul locked away as the demon took control. The painting of Fulgrim that hung in La Fincia, the theater of the Third Legion's flagship, stood as a haunting reminder of what he had once been. A tragic fall of Fulgrim was now complete. And so this is the first time too, we've had Astartes kill Astartes, and that catches everyone off guard. But this was the first time a Primarch was killed by a brother Primarch, and the first time a Primarch was just killed at all.
Well, if we don't know what happened to the other missing Legion Primarchs, yeah.
What missing Primarchs?
Yeah, what do you know about missing Primarchs? What do you know that we don't know, huh?
I'm just saying, if they're dead, then they weren't. Then Paris wasn't the first. If they're dead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the records only say that there are 18. Who are these other two that you speak of?
Never mind. Forget I said anything. I don't want to get disappeared too.
Yeah, so this sword ultimately possesses Fulgrim. He gets to the point where weakens Fulgrim's soul enough that he does something that he really regrets, and that's when he kind of lets himself go and the demon takes control.
Fulgrim and the War Master. In the aftermath of the traitor's resounding triumph at Ispan 5, Fulgrim sought a private audience with the War Master Horus. His arrival carried with it a grim yet triumphant spectacle, the severed head of Ferrus Manus, the ultimate token of his fulfilled promise. Horus, reveling in this apparent victory, was eager to celebrate the feat with his captains. Yet Fulgrim, the ever-elegant prince of the Primarch of the Emperor's Children, revealed with a sly flourish that the decapitation of his brother had not been his own doing. He lacked the resolve to execute such a deed, he confessed, and so it was done for him. In that moment, the War Master's keen mind perceived the unsettling truth, that being that stood before him, though clad in the resplendent visage of Fulgrim, was no longer his brother. This was an impostor, a being of a far darker nature. With a growl of restrained fury, Horus declared his contempt, warning this pretender that he could crush it like a brittle straw, should he so desire. But the entity inhabiting Fulgrim's form dismissed such threats with a cold, otherworldly confidence, deeming combat and exercise in futility a waste of their mutual purpose.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. The little encounter there where Horus kind of realizes, wait, that's not my brother. Chaos is still pretty new to this whole situation, so kind of everyone's kind of eyeing each other out, looking across the field like that's something new over there. Yikes.
Yeah, they're not the Chaos legions that come out like later. Anything warp related, it's still very new, and they're still distrustful. Like, I think at this time Horus still sees Chaos as a means to an end, and like he's disgusted and disturbed that like something would possess someone like a Primarch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Or that a Primarch would even let themselves be possessed.
Yeah.
Horus's eyes flickered to Fulgrim's side, confirming his suspicion that the creature had approached him unarmed. This strange, unchallenged boldness bespoke no intent for immediate violence. Instead, the entity laid bare its purpose to pledge unwavering allegiance to Horus's grand rebellion. The creature then revealed its true nature, an emissary of the Warp, a devoted servant of the Dark Prince Slaanesh. It had claimed Fulgrim's mortal shell as its own, delighting in the exquisite torment of its unwilling host. When Horus demanded the fate of his brother, the demon inhabiting Fulgrim's body spoke with chilling pride. Fulgrim's essence remained intact within the confines of his own form, fully conscious of every heinous act, yet powerless to resist. The creature relished the anguished cries of its captive, savoring them as a symphony of despair. Though appalled by this revelation, Horus maintained his composure. The demon, for all its malefic nature, had sworn fealty to his cause, and its power was undeniable. The Emperor's children and their infernal patron were assets too valuable to discard, despite the monstrous price they carried. Quietly, Horus resolved that this treachery would not endure forever. In time, he vowed to cast down the usurping demon and liberate Fulgrim's tormented soul. Yet even the War Master pondered what force might undo such a malevolent entity. I mean, 10,000 years later, see how that worked out for Horus. The demon was struck. The demon Fulgrim and Horus would conceal the truth of its possession. The entity harbored no desire to expose its secret, and Horus knew well that such knowledge would fracture the fragile alliances of the traitor legions. Thus, they would maintain the illusion for the rebellion's sake and Fulgrim's eventual salvation.
Yeah, it's like you're kind of saying, Christian. They're not quite fully ready to dedicate to chaos. The Emperor's children were a very special exception. They fell hard and fast in all their excesses.
How they like to do
It was
things.
a steep spiral. Yeah.
Hard.
And it was perfect every time, too, that they did it.
Hard, fast, and perfect.
Yeah, so then, Horus and Fulgrim, they were very good friends. We talked a little bit about it on the last episode, where not only was he really good friends with Ferrus Manus, but also Horus. So this kind of shift, this change really must have kind of had an impact on Horus too, with the potential dangers of the galaxy out here.
Yeah. And like, as far as Horus is concerned, he's lost a brother too. Like, Fulgrim is lost. This thing that wears his face is not his brother. So he's just as much like wanting to liberate Fulgrim as anyone. Yet Fulgrim was like well liked by the other Primarchs. Like, he gets a bad rap, like meme about like, oh, he's hoity-toity and stuff, but he was genuinely charismatic and likable and got people to like him, including the other Primarchs. Like, he was genuinely friends with a bunch of them.
And I'll give him one more piece of credit just to kind of counter that meme that you're talking about. He came from a mining world, a very poor mining world, and he built that place up. So like, his wealth was hard earned. Like, he actually earned that wealth. It wasn't given to him.
Yeah,
or,
he didn't inherit like the most perfect society or get like perfect parents or anything. Did you mention that he even got married?
No, we didn't talk about his multiple wives, but eventually they kept dying off, and he just kind of got weary of the whole game of it all.
For some reason, all their hips were just shattered. That's what killed them all.
Gracefully shattered, mind you. Perfectly and elegantly shattered.
Weird way to go, but
I think just in case the chat was wondering, I did read somewhere, and Mark, and you can confirm or deny this, but weren't all the Primarchs specifically made to be sterile, so they couldn't actually procreate?
Yeah, I don't know. I would imagine that would make sense, that the Emperor doesn't want them creating little super demigod babies running around. That's
and that's the whole idea behind the gene seed being the way that it is, so that the Emperor didn't want to breed a race of supermen because they would not be human. He's treating these as like tools to achieve the perfect society, to turn around and give back to humanity as it is, not
like the Emperor is not a transhumanist.
Yeah,
that's not his end goal.
So he's not meaning for these Primarchs to become a self-sustaining species. Not that they would know that, right? Like, if they take on their wives, like, they wouldn't know that they're sterile.
Must be shooting blanks or something.
I keep trying and it's not working. Try all the holes, Fulgrim. Make sure you try each and every last one of them.
What was it?
One of them has to work.
So that was the start of darkness.
What's the name of that superhero show with Will Smith where it's like really dark on superheroes?
Hancock.
Yeah, Hancock. Yeah. I don't know if this was a deleted scene or if this was actually in the movie, but he's going at it with the girl, but his ejaculation is so powerful it like blows holes through the roof. I think he like pushes her off, and then like holes just like through the roof. I imagine that's something what Primarch could be like. So
I'm glad you imagined that.
No, I didn't imagine.
Too late. The image has been set.
Yeah.
It was either in the movie or it was a deleted scene. Go YouTube it if you want to picture what Fulgrim was like in bed. All right. Let's move on. The Traitor Conclave. 4 days after the catastrophic drop site massacre on Isfahan 5, the War Master Horus summoned the Primarchs who had forsaken the Imperium to assemble aboard his grand flagship, the Vengeful Spirit. It was the first gathering of the Dark Fraternity since the harrowing events on Isfahan, a moment fraught with gravity and purpose. These lords of war understood the monumental stakes of the rebellion and the roles they would play in shaping the galaxy's destiny. 8 Primarchs attended the gathering, though only half were physically present. Fulgrim, Perturabo, Angron, and Lorgar Aurelian occupied seats around the council table, while the remaining 4, Conrad Kurz, Mortarion, Alfarius, and Magnus the Red, appeared as spectral projections. The flickering gray of hololithic images contrasted sharply with the radiant, sorcerous brilliance of Magnus, who manifested through the witchfire from the planet of the sorcerers, still nursing wounds from the burning of Prospero. As the meeting commenced, Lorgar's eyes locked onto Fulgrim with a disconcerting intensity. Horus, exasperated by Fulgrim's aloofness and lack of discipline, was already weary. Before formal proceedings could begin, Lorgar's hand moved toward his Crozius Arcanum, its ornate haft glinting with malevolent energy. In a sudden thunderous motion, the word-bearer's Primarch struck Fulgrim, sending him hurtling into the chamber's rear wall, his form collapsing in a graceless heap. Rising to his full stature, Lorgar declared with unyielding conviction that this being was not his brother. His voice laced with cold certainty, carried by psychic resonance that chilled even the mighty Primarchs present. The others instinctively drew their weapons, advancing toward the crumpled figure, but Horus intervened, attempting to temper Lorgar's fury. Yet, to the War Master's dismay, Lorgar's unflinching defiance revealed a transformation wrought in the fires of Isfan.
Oh, man, so cool. Like, you get all these Primarchs who run into him, and a lot of them are like, hey, wait, you're not the guy you say you are. But I imagine that the Emperor's children, they don't notice this change in Fulgrim. No one else would, but it shows like just how much above all the Primarchs are. And especially with Lorgar, who is the Primarch of the Word Bearers, who has dealt with a lot of demons and stuff and started to serve the Dark Gods already. He kind of knows this feeling, this force already.
Yeah, like he's instinctive about it. Like he knows something's up. He knows that this thing is a warp entity and not really his brother. And like you said, Mark, like even like the most subtle perception that the Primarchs can pick up on, right? Like this thing looks and sounds like Fulgrim, but it is not Fulgrim, and they can tell. Lorgar accused the creature, masquerading as Fulgrim, of being a hollow shell, its essence usurped by a malevolent force. As the tension mounted, the word-bearer's Primarch turned his accusatory gaze upon Horus, suddenly realizing the War Master already knew of Fulgrim's corruption. Horus dismissed the others, save for Lorgar, to contain the escalating confrontation. In private, the truth unraveled. The being inhabiting Fulgrim's flesh was a demon, an entity of chaos that had stolen his brother's mortal vessel. Fulgrim's soul was trapped within a tormented witness to the demon's every vile deed. Lorgar, appalled by this perversion, condemned it as a grotesque mockery of what the ruinous powers desired, a willing champion, not a corrupted husk. Unlike his Gal Vorbak, who embodied harmonious possession, this demon had annihilated Fulgrim's essence to satisfy its own greed. So yeah, that's an important distinction, is like, of all people, it's weird that Fulgrim is angry that a possession has taken place. But Fulgrim, being the worshiper of chaos that he is, believes, and is probably right, that the chaos gods want willing subservience, not slaves in the sense of like they're being forced or they're unwilling. He wants them to be fully dedicated to chaos and to the demons. He wants that bond to be like a mutual, like, yes, I want you to possess me, not a I fought it until you took advantage of a weakened state to possess me.
Yeah, very parasitic, but like the good kind of parasite. What's that kind called? Where it's like beneficial almost.
Symbiotic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
symbiotic. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All the while, that sword just was like lingering in this temple for thousands of years, being worshipped by this race of snake-like people. And one day, who would have known that old sword would have got broken out of there and become a galactic player and now possess a Primarch?
I mean, I could understand like some kind of undivided warp entity, a corn demon maybe, a Zinch demon, not a Nurgle demon maybe, but I don't know. Slaanesh demon that's just greed and excess personified. So of course, I'd imagine they'd be greedy to want to make, especially a Primarch, like their unwitting servant or slave to Slaanesh.
Yeah, like that demon is living its best demon life.
Exactly. And then some.
Yeah. Lurgar's psychic might flared as he bound the demon in place, ignoring Horus's warnings that such actions endangered their brother. To Lorgar, Fulgrim was already lost, a shell housing a desecration unworthy of life. With cold authority, he vowed to uncover the demon's true name and banish it to the warp. The demon, rendered powerless against Lorgar's wrath, could only endure his threats. When Horus placed a restraining hand on Lorgar's shoulder, the word-bearer's Primarch compelled the War Master to withdraw through sheer psychic force. Horus obeyed, his composure strained under the weight of Lorgar's unrelenting will. As Lorgar departed, his parting words carried a chilling resonance. Everything changed that night, he said, alluding to the fateful confrontation with Corvus Corax during the massacre. Horus left in contemplative silence. He could not deny the profound transformation in his brother, a harbinger of a storm yet to come. Lorgar's coming out pretty badass too in all this.
Yeah.
For once.
So Fulgrim's fate. The warriors of the Third Legion, the Emperor's children, adored their Primarch, Fulgrim, with unflinching loyalty. Unaware of the torment beneath his flawless exterior, within his mind the true Fulgrim clawed desperately at the prison of his own body, bound by a malevolent force. Only one among them, Captain Lucius of the 13th Company, sensed a shadow over his Primarch, though he kept his suspicions silent. The demon Fulgrim, ever perceptive, recognized the burgeoning warp touch potential within Lucius and rewarded him with the silver demon blade. Once inhabited by the essence of the Laer, now a vessel of latent chaos power, the blade, though lesser compared to the fearsome Kimbrich and Anatheum gifted to Fulgrim by Horus, carried the promise of dark might, a prelude to Lucius' destiny as the harbinger of death. You were joking too the last episode about Fulgrim just being this like antique sword collector. He collects quite a few over the time, even has a couple demon swords that are probably both whispering into each other's ears on his shoulder, like, you've done very well, Lucius. Here, have a cool sword for my collection. After the fateful gathering aboard the Vengeful Spirit, the demon Fulgrim received Horus's command to assist in the brewing civil war on Mars. Yet, in a display of growing defiance and instability, Fulgrim redirected his legion to the Mechanicum crystal mining world of Prismatica 5. His erratic orders unsettled the senior officers of the legion, none more so than Lord Commander Eidolon, who dared to question his master. This act of perceived insolence ended swiftly and brutally. Fulgrim, in a fit of paranoia and wrath, struck him down with the Anatheum, severing Eidolon's head in a single fluid motion. Holding the grisly trophy aloft, Fulgrim allowed the blood to mix with the Legion's victory wine, a macabre ritual shared with his closest circle, their silence as chilling as their acquiescence. Sure, when Fulgrim does it, it's creepy, but when the flesh eaters do it, the flesh terrors do it, that's fine.
Because it's in the name of the Emperor. Duh.
Okay.
Depends who you're doing it for, Mark. We just call it communion.
Yeah, it's funny how some of these blood rituals, like, yeah, depending on who's doing it, like this side and this time frame would be very dark. But yeah, give it a couple hundred years and some loyalists are doing this too. Among the witnesses was Lucius, who viewed the incident not with shock, but with a calculating gaze. Eidolon's death was far from mourned, served as another piece in the puzzle of Fulgrim's transformation. Lucius, already troubled by dark visions, grew more vigilant. He noticed cracks in the veneer of the Primarch's perfection. His withdrawal from the Legion's traditions, his lack of fraternal connection, and most damningly, his faltering swordsmanship. Oh man, he's like not himself anymore. Like the perfection's starting to go. He was on this really good drug high for so long, and everyone was like, he's doing really good. He's full of energy and life, but now he's done it too much, and his teeth are falling out and starting to get cracked out.
Getting a little
Instead of
meth-based.
100% effective, he is now 99.5%
Oh,
effective. Shame.
But for a Primarch,
Shame.
that's noticeable.
Once a paragon of martial prowess, Fulgrim now seemed a shadow of his former self. The truth became undeniable when Lucius observed the Primarch wielding psychic abilities to destroy a Warhound-class Titan during the assault of Prismatica 5, a feat entirely unlike Fulgrim he had known. Yeah, like regular Fulgrim would have wanted the pride of trying to defeat it in hand-to-hand combat or something, not just blow it out of the sky.
Yeah.
I'll fight that warlord with my sword!
I also like that this planet is called Prismatica. It's just like a rave world. I just picture
Yeah, all the
It-
lights
it's-
reflecting everywhere.
it's a suitable.
Just imagine dropping some noise marines just down there and
Yeah, exactly.
Prismatica 5. Welcome, Prismatica 5. Yeah, very nice. Haunted by his dreams, Lucius felt compelled to defy Fulgrim's order and investigate the forbidden halls of La Francie, the grand theater aboard the flagship, the Pride of the Emperor. It was here, amidst the ruin of the Marjavigila's corrupting legacy. Man, what is that word? We talked about it last episode. It's the play.
Maraviglia.
Maraviglia. Yeah, sounds cool. That play that they kind of came up with. And the Legion's descent into Slaanesh's embrace had truly begun. In the dim light of the shattered proscenium, Lucius discovered a portrait that seemed to radiate a supernatural brilliance. Encased in an opulent golden frame, the painted depicted Fulgrim in his full splendor, adorned in the resplendent armor of purple and gold, standing triumphant before the gates of Heliopolis. Behind him, the flaming wings of the phoenix spread wide, their firelight casting a radiant glow upon the polished plates of the full and his flowing golden hair. The portrait was a testament to Fulgrim they had revered, a figure of transcendent beauty, charisma, and power. Yet, as Lucius stared at this idealized image, the contrast to the creature now inhabiting his Primarch's form became starkly evident. The painting was not merely art. It was a cruel reminder of what had been lost to the insidious grip of chaos. Yeah, this painting has this kind of soul link with Fulgrim. It was made with blood and piss and shit by this crazy lady.
As all good art.
Who might have been a latent... As all good art is, yeah. Smeared on a canvas and voila! If you don't think it's good, you just don't understand modern art. And yeah, like it kind of locked onto Fulgrim's image and presence.
Instead of the picture of Dorian Gray, it's a picture of Fulgrim.
Yeah, that's a great movie.
All right, where's my Hollywood rights there? Where's my movie rights there, Hollywood? Come on.
Yeah, very cool.
Perfect.
Yeah, royalties are coming in the
continuing
mail.
on.
I'm sure of it. I'm sure
In the annals of the Great Crusade, no figure was as resplendent or awe-inspiring as Fulgrim, the Primarch of the Emperor's children. In a masterpiece of art and devotion, his likeness was immortalized with unparalleled precision. Every stroke of the brush seemed to sing with adoration, capturing his impossible beauty and the boundless vitality that made him a living avatar of perfection. Yeah, so perfect. To gaze upon this painting was to behold the embodiment of the sublime, a warrior and leader whose elegance eclipsed all others. In its luminous detail, the portrait whispered of wonders still within humanity's grasp, a beacon of aspiration amid the galaxy's tumult. Yet within the radiant eyes of the painted Fulgrim lay a dissonance, an exquisite agony etched beyond mortal artistry. The gaze seemed alive, brimming with torment that only could have been born of some unnatural truth. The painted eyes followed Lucius, captain of the 13th Company, with haunting intensity, leaving him certain of one chilling fact. Fulgrim, their Primarch, was not himself. What paraded as their lord was a facade, an impostor veiling a far darker truth. Convinced of his sacred duty, Lucius vowed to liberate his true master and restore the glory of the Third Legion. With the finesse of a master tactician and the charisma of a champion, Lucius convened the Brotherhood of the Phoenix, the elite warrior lodge of the Emperor's children. Here, among proud officers whose egos rivaled their skill, he spun a tale of righteous suspicion. His impassioned words sowed both doubt and determination, compelling his brothers to act. Despite their mutual disdain for Lucius, the warriors were moved, their vanity weaponized against them, and they agreed to his audacious plan. In a calculated ambush, the Brotherhood seized Fulgrim, enduring grievous losses but succeeding in their objective. The subdued Primarch was taken to the Apothecarion under the shadowy auspices of Chief Apothecary Fabius Bile. Ooh, There, Fulgrim was subjected to the harrowing process of excoriation. Lucius, Julius Cassoron, and Marius Veras. Damn, why are you giving me the hard characters? Marius Veracian sought to exorcise the demon they believed has overtaken their lord's body. Bound to the examination table, Fulgrim endured their brutal ministrations, speaking only of grand designs in the inexorable rise of chaos, his words enigmatic and laden with foreboding.
Man, that is one hell of a fucking... I know you did wrong. It's fine. We're here for you. This is one hell of an intervention they're throwing for him. It's fine, Fulgrim. It's fine. We can get better. You can get
It's
better.
not
You can
you-
get through this, Fulgrim. Just
It's
let us
not
do
you,
a couple
Daddy, it's
surgeries
us.
on you and turn
Actually,
you into a
it is
spider or
just you,
something
but-
cool. It's
Yes,
fine.
come
No, you
on.
don't want that?
Bondage, torture. Some would say not the worst fate for a demon of
Yeah,
pleasure,
hell
but
of an intervention. Yeah, it's like that's like a bad fate for people who don't
Ugh.
want to do that, you know? Torture a
It's
demon
like
who likes
the
it.
worst kind of.
It's like my
I don't
hell,
want to talk about it.
I think.
Anyways, amidst the torment, Lucius experienced an epiphany. The Brotherhood had been deceived. Their assumptions were false. As realization dawned, Fulgrim effortlessly broke his restraints, his movements swift and regal. In that moment, his conspirators fell to their knees, humbled and repentant. Fulgrim, magnanimous in his perfection, forgave their betrayal, deeming it a necessary lesson for his favored sons. What they had taken for possession was, in truth, a deception crafted by Fulgrim himself. Dun dun dun! Revealing his brilliance, Fulgrim confessed that he had
Dun,
indeed
dun,
been possessed
dun.
by a demon, his soul imprisoned within the portrait that hung in La Fenice. However, the Phoenix was no victim. Through cunning and newfound mastery of warpcraft, he had turned the trap on its creator, banishing the demon into the painting and reclaiming his body. The dark dreams that had plagued Lucius were but the demon's futile attempts to secure its release. Fulgrim had used this time of turmoil to manipulate his sons, testing their resolve and loyalty while refining his path to ultimate perfection. So, does it like did this book actually specify like how long was Fulgrim actually Fulgrim and not just pretending to be demon possessed?
This book happens over a very quick amount of time. It's been a handful of years since I read it, but it happens very quick. Still in like the Horus Heresy, in the very, very beginning of it.
it's also not just one book too. There's the Reflection Cracked was like a short story too that this torture scene takes place from, and I think there's other. I don't know. Yeah, like Mark said, it's been a while. I just remember those two books are pretty close to what you're describing right now.
It's so funny, these two, the demon and Fulgrim, they both are like very they seem like they're mustache twirling bad guys in this moment. Both
That's
like, well, I outsmarted you. Well, no,
That's the important
you.
part.
And they both like it. They're both getting off to it. They're playing into their pride and putting on a show.
I knew we were going to get into this when we
Not
were going to
good.
talk about Fulgrim. There's just
No way around it.
anyways.
Hold on. Before we move past this torture scene, which
There's
we
just
kind of
no
did
holes
already,
about
but
it.
to go back to it a little bit.
Oh, no. When I thought I was trying to get away, they dragged me back in.
Let's dive back into a little
like,
torture.
Primarchs have a superhuman physiology, so like when they're torturing, they're like brutal, and they do describe it in that Reflection Cracked story. They're like torching off like his foot and like slashing his skin open and like just doing what they can. Yeah. There is even a rectal type of torture, which again, like it is described as that. I'm not even just joking. I'm just saying it did happen. Lifetime ban.
And what author was
Yeah.
that again? He's not allowed in
It's to
any
be expected.
GWs no more.
Well,
Yeah,
nope,
interesting.
not going to go there.
Lifetime ban.
Not going to go there.
Not for a demon of pleasure, Mark. No
Wrong
holes in a
hole.
rock hole.
Sometimes you got to make a new one. That was a boys' reference for anyone that was curious. I am not that perverted. Damn. His apparent decline in skill, his mercurial temperament, and his dismissal of Legion traditions were all calculated moves. He sought to transcend mortal limitations, embracing the boundless potential offered by Slaanesh. Fulgrim's journey was not one of power alone, but of an endless pursuit of experience, sensation, and enlightenment. He called upon his sons to join him in this pursuit, to push the boundaries of existence and revel in the extremes of being. Fulgrim's audacious assault on Prismatic of 5 was no act of rebellion, but a masterstroke of vision. The crystalline spoils of that campaign would forge a city of mirrors, a radiant testament to his philosophy, where sensation and enlightenment would intermingle in divine harmony. As he prepared for the next stage of their evolution, Fulgrim set his sights on joining forces with Perturabo and the Iron Warriors, the stage set for yet another chapter in his magnificent odyssey.
Yeah, very cool. It's cool how he's like taking him on this journey. It started very small, just introducing art and like poetry to the Legion, specifically his. And then, it amps up a little bit here and there. And then now we're in full swing where he's like, I've seen the edges of what we could have. Like, join me, sons. We can go even further still.
Angel Exterminatus. As Horus's rebellion surged across the galaxy, the Iron Warriors seized the opportunity to humble their long-standing rivals, the Imperial Fists, on the isolated world of Hydra Cordatus, a planet recently brought into Imperial compliance under the Gene Sons of Rogel Dorn. Their triumph complete, Perturabo received word that Fulgrim and his Emperor's children sought a rendezvous with him to discuss a matter of extraordinary importance. The Phoenician, ever enigmatic, promised his brother something wondrous, though he had yet to reveal its nature. Perturabo, ever the pragmatist, knew Fulgrim's penchant for the theatrical, a trait that he had only grown more extravagant since the Third Legion pledged allegiance to the War Master. While extravagant, yeah.
That's a
I
nice
also
way
like
of
how you
calling him
type
gay.
Third Legion as
It's
three.
become more
three
extravagant.
The 111 Legion. Are you currently possessed?
Very
My notes
very
are typed to
theatrical
perfection, I'll have
and
you know.
extravagant.
Kill
My
Christian.
machete down here whispers to me. What's that machete?
Hey, Mark, chop up Christian, eat his body too. Oh,
No one escapes Paradise Reef.
a place where all your dreams come true.
Very relatable story, honestly. Very relatable.
While Perturabo was not one to form a close bond with his fellow Primarchs, he had once shared a tenuous camaraderie with Fulgrim. Both sought perfection, albeit by contrasting means. The Iron Warriors through unyielding discipline and methodical precision, and the Emperor's children through ceaseless pursuit of aesthetic and martial excellence. These divergent paths had once forged a mutual respect, if not affection, between the two. Like I said, Fulgrim was good at making friends with other Primarchs, even ones that aren't known for making friends. Like Perturabo was pretty, a pretty big loner. Didn't make really close bonds with other Primarchs. Really, I think just Horus and Fulgrim were his friends. Perturabo suspected Fulgrim's visit was tied to the looming campaign against Mars, a pivotal theater in the War Master's grand design. If the Phoenicians sought the Iron Warriors' assistance in breaching the forged cities of the Mechanicum, Perturabo intended to be prepared. Until confirmation arrived, he resolved to indulge his brother's dramatic overtures and hear him out. As Perturabo prepared his forces, word arrived that the Emperor's children had landed unannounced on Hydra Cordatus. Over 300 dropcraft descended into the valley near the Iron Warriors' encampment. In response, Perturabo marshaled his legion to greet their ostentatious guests. The Iron Warriors' ranks swelled with tens of thousands of Thoracatai, Imperial Army troops, and 200 grand battalions of Astartes, 50,000 warriors in resplendent amber warplate, arrayed in flawless formation. It was a spectacle of power and precision unmatched since the carnage of Isstvan V. Yet, as the Emperor's children emerged from their drop site, Perturabo and his officers beheld a vision both mesmerizing and grotesque. The Third Legion had become an unrecognizable amalgam of riotous color, discordant noise, and warped decadence. The once proud warriors now bore unsettling alterations, their disfigurements and excesses confounding comprehension. Something fundamental had shifted within the Emperor's children, and Perturabo struggled to fathom the purpose of their grotesque transformations.
Yeah, it'd be such a crazy difference to see them in this light. They were the Third Legion, and since they were so small, they were originally just like a parade legion. And that's all they would do. They'd just kind of march in lockstep, make sure all their armor was perfect. They carried the symbol of the emperor himself, so that's like another honor, another like kind of parade honor. And then to see him go into this with now this guy's painted rainbow, this guy has some type of crazy mohawk hair thing going on, this guy just has like outlandish things going on every which way you look.
They have
What
their
a
eyes
difference.
like pulled open, their mouths like stretched out, their tongues are like extended, like just whatever body modifications they can to like attain some kind of sensational high.
Yeah.
And the other interesting thing too of all legions to encounter this is Perturabo, who's already and always has been distrustful of anything like
Of everything, really.
of everything, yes, but like even more so like chaos. Like even though he joins the traders, he's not really loyal to chaos. He's loyal to himself, and he like disdains like the demonic and everything like that. So of all the legions to see this parade coming out is just like off-putting. Like, what happened?
I mean, it's like a big fuck you to the emperor. Like the legion that's supposed to bear his symbol, like the perfect legion, quote unquote, just like is reduced to this. Like, ugh.
It's a good 1990s "Don't do drugs, kids" commercial.
Yeah.
Don't do drugs. This is you before. This is you after.
Don't do school. Stay in drugs.
The messaging got mixed in Gerald's mind. He mixed up the propaganda.
Yep.
It's good advice still, though, I think.
I swear the more we just keep talking about this Primarch, it's just bringing out the worst in all of us.
In the privacy of Perturabo's command bunker, Fulgrim revealed his purpose. His offer was as seductive as it was audacious. The means to realize every desire to craft a reality that would never disappoint, and to embark on a campaign that could decisively shift the balance of the War Master's rebellion. Fulgrim proposed a joint venture, a glorious endeavor to achieve the unimaginable. The heart of Fulgrim's plan lay in a venture to the warp storm that had haunted Perturabo's dreams since the earliest days. Within the storm lay an ancient forbidden Xenos weapon, the Angel Exterminatus. This artifact of unspeakable power was entombed in a prison so catastrophic that the very stars had rebelled against its existence, sealing it away for eternity. Fulgrim's enticing vision promised not only glory, but the ultimate weapon to crush their enemies and cement their dominion. Though Perturabo harbored deep suspicion of his brother's altered nature and motives, the prospect of unlocking the mysteries of the Angel Exterminatus and fulfilling his ambitions was a temptation too profound to ignore. In Fulgrim's proposal, Perturabo glimpsed the possibility of unparalleled power and the resolution to his restless dreams. And so, the Lord of Iron agreed. The fates of their legions entwined in a quest that would redefine the galaxy's future.
Cool. So they're like, we just discovered chaos. What else does it kind of have? Let's go dive deep into the Eye of Terror and discover what chaos has for us. Some cool relics, some cool artifacts, maybe a grow of third and fourth arm. It's quite the adventure we can get up to, though.
Call it a brotherly bonding activity.
Yeah, exactly. Sisypheum. Unbeknownst to both the Emperor's children and the Iron Warriors, their path was shadowed by the defiant cadre of loyalist Astartes, survivors of the infamous drop site massacre at Istavan V. This determined force, forged in the fires of betrayal and bloodshed, vowed to hinder the traitors at every turn, no matter the cost. These warriors had clawed their way out of the Urgal Depression, defying impossible odds to escape the slaughter. Their sanctuary was the Sisypheum, an Iron Hand strike cruiser, which became their lifeline amongst the void. I'm going to say this word a lot. Do you guys have a better way of saying Sisypheums?
No, I think that's right.
Okay.
Sisypheum, yeah.
It's like Sisyphus.
Yeah. It's kind of looking, maybe if I said differently, it might have some tie-in, but maybe syphilis. Syphilis,
Well,
yes.
okay, now you screwed it up. You had it right the first time.
Yeah.
Did.
Son of a whore. Okay, the Sisypheum crew was primarily comprised of Iron Hands Astartes and their mortal serfs, but it had harbored remnants of the Salamanders and a solitary Raven Guard warrior. Their escape from Istvan's system had been nothing short of a master stroke of daring. They endured relentless fire and treacherous silent runs through the traitors' orbital blockade, culminating in the desperate sprint to the Mandeville point, where they finally achieved the salvation of a warp jump. The cost of their fleet was steep, yet the Sisypheum endured, a predator reborn, poised to strike. Those Mandeville points are kind of cool, just like little points in space where you can jump. They're in-system warp jump points. In the solar months that followed, the Sisypheum unleashed a campaign of precision strikes against the traitor forces along the Segmentum Obscurus northern reaches. Like a lone predator haunting the darkened sea, the Loyalists preyed upon the War Master's supply lines and vulnerable scout fleets. Lumbering supply hulks laden with munitions and mortal soldiers, cartography ships, and vanguard crafts seeking flanking routes fell to the audacious ambushes. Their mission was clear: disrupt, harass, and bleed the traitors dry while the scattered loyalist forces regrouped and reorganized. This is a cool little force of Astartes just going on a wild hunt here. And if one of them dies, they're just like, well, that was what we were all going to do anyways. See you in hell, brothers. This guerrilla campaign evolved into a strategy of attrition, devised when contact was established with other loyalist survivors. Bereft of cohesion to fight on conventional battlefields, the remnants of the 10th Legion and their allies chose to become a persistent thorn in the flank of the traitor Leviathan. They distracted the behemoth, delaying its advance and weakening its resolve before it could strike at the heart of the Imperium. Among their most pivotal victories was the operation of Cavor Satra, where the Iron Hand, Sabek Wayland, and the lone Raven Guard, Nikona Shirokin, captured an unholy creation of the Dark Mechanicum, the Unlingual Cipher Host, or Cryptos. This hybrid abomination, a living cryptographic key, had rendered the traitors' communication impenetrable. With the Cryptos in their possession, the Loyalists finally unraveled the traitors' encoded transmissions, gaining critical insight into their movements.
This is giving me U-571 vibes right now. The whole Enigma machine thing from the Germans during World War II. That's kind of what this is reminding me of.
Okay. Yeah, this is giving me vibes of like a little scrap code type similar thing where it's like some type of AI bot designed for a little thing. This one, the Cipher Host, bunch of little keys, transcriptions and stuff. It was through these decrypted messages that the Sisypheum's captain, the Iron Hands, Alrek Branathan, learned of the gathering between Fulgrim and Puertorabo on Hydra Cordatus. The revelations did not end there. The communications unveiled Fulgrim's intent to venture into the Eye of Terror to unearth the Angel Exterminatus, an ancient and forbidden Xenos weapon of unimaginable power. Realizing the catastrophic implications of such a discovery, Branathan resolved to intercept the traitors. Their journey toward Hydra Cordatus and the Great Warp Rift was perilous, but they were not without allies. A mysterious Eldari guide whose motives remained inscrutable lent their aid, steering the Sisypheum through the labyrinth paths of the galaxy. United in purpose and unwavering in resolve, the Sisypheum's crew embarked on the fateful mission to thwart Fulgrim's ambitions and deny the traitors their prize. The battle ahead promised glory or obliteration, but the Loyalists stood undaunted, their defiance a radiant beacon against the encroaching dark. Cool, so we got this band of counter-heroes now coming together to see if they can stop Fulgrim from getting the Angel Exterminatus.
Crone World. The united fleet of traitor vessels from the Iron Warriors and Emperor's Children set their course for Idris, a lost Eldari world steeped in myth and shadow. Once graced by the favor of Liliath, the Eldari goddess of fortune and dreams, Idris held a place of reverence in the annals of their ancient empire. It was one of the fabled Crone worlds, the shattered remnants of the Eldari's once majestic dominion. These worlds lay at the heart of the Eye of Terror, their destiny intertwined with the cataclysmic birth of Slaanesh and the creation of the warp rift that consumed their civilization. Idris itself defied the chaos of its surroundings, maintaining an eerie stability at the core of the Eye of Terror. Anchored impossibly amidst the gravitational maelstrom of a supermassive black hole, the planet stood resolute in the midst of a cosmic inferno. This singularity, a monstrous vortex of destruction, devoured light, matter, and even time itself, while spewing forth unholy matter into the void, a dark portal to an unfathomable realm. Amidst this hellish confluence of forces, Idris endured, its unyielding existence an enigma of both fate and defiance. The traitor Primarch's ultimate objective lay deep within this haunted world, the sepulchre of Isha's doom, nestled at the heart of the formidable citadel of Amun Nishak Kalis. That's what I'm going with. This citadel guarded the threshold of the prism tomb of the Angel Exterminatus, a weapon of unimaginable power coveted by Fulgrim and Perturabo. Before committing to a full-scale invasion, the Iron Warriors initiated a devastating orbital bombardment, a prelude worthy of their mastery of siegecraft. The bombardment was cataclysmic. A cone of fire descended upon Idris, obliterating millennia-old structures in mere moments. The planetary crust was scorched and pulverized, leaving a barren, smoldering wasteland encircling the citadel. Towering walls, ancient temples, and soaring spires stood isolated amid an inferno of planet-cracking force. The citadel of Amon Nishak Kalis, a fortress of defiance, now loomed as an island amidst a sea of ruins. In the aftermath of this apocalyptic strike, the traitor fleet unleashed its might. Waves of thunderhawks, stormbirds, and heavy planetary landers descended from their embarkation decks, filling the skies with dark promise of annihilation. Bulk tenders moved into low orbit, releasing an unrelenting tide of troop carriers, armor lifters, and supply barges. Majestic gravity-defying mass landers brought the colossal titans of the Legio Mortis into the battlefield, their imposing forms a testament to the traitor's unbridled martial power. This was but the vanguard. 8 additional waves of invasion forces would follow, delivering the combined might of 2 Space Marine legions and their vast contingents of mortal auxiliaries. The assault on Idris was not merely a battle, it was a symphony of war orchestrated with a relentless precision and unmatched ferocity. Every act, every moment carried the mark of perfection and the indomitable pride of Fulgrim's grand design. The dark prize of the Angel Exterminatus drew near, and with it the promise of unparalleled glory or annihilation.
The scale of all the battles in the Horus Heresy is crazy. They got all this stuff. They've got Titans there. They got Mechanicum stuff going on. It's just such massive things.
And this is just the human side of everything. We're not even talking about Eldari, Necrons, any of that stuff.
So we get this huge planetary battle.
Amon Nishak Kalis.
It translated into, it means you owe me a pizza. So it's not too bad for you.
Yeah, I've struck worse.
Say it a bunch of times and then it's a lot darker. Yeah.
All right. The assault of the traitor legions upon the fabled citadel of Amon Nishak Kalis commenced with a display of calculated aggression and unrelenting determination. Merely 5 solar hours after their arrival, even before the full fortifications were complete, the traitors advanced. The route to the citadel lay tantalizingly undefended, a detail that reeked of treachery to the ever-suspicious Perturabo. His Iron Warriors, ever the masters of siegecraft, established an impeccable defensive formation, a layered barbican, a fortress of retreat should events turn grim. In stark contrast, Fulgrim's Emperor's children surged forward in a chaotic symphony of extravagance and ferocity. Splintering into flamboyant warbands, their numbers ranged from disciplined groups of 100 to unruly mobs nearly 1,000 strong. The ostentation of their armor, a dazzling array of ornamentation and grotesque embellishments, blurred the distinction between captains and rank-and-file warriors. Perturabo, ever the pragmatic strategist, led the Iron Warriors alongside Fulgrim's contingent into the enigmatic heart of the Amon Nishak Kalis. Oh crap, that's the 3rd time I said it. Mark, what did I trigger?
Now something much more nefarious happens.
Roll
I
a
get
d20.
a pair of your dirty socks.
Oh. Again, not the worst thing I've been asked for, but it depends what you're going to do with those socks.
That's where the demon gets you.
There, the sepulchre of Isha's doom loomed, a monolithic palace of unparalleled grandeur. Its architecture was a lament to lost glory, adorned with bulbous morn towers and sprawling ivory domes. As the traders marched toward their prize, they were unwittingly observed by the Sisypheum's loyalist Astartes. Though hopelessly outnumbered, these steadfast warriors quietly devised a daring plan to infiltrate the sepulchre. As the twin Primarchs pressed deeper into their alien sanctum, tension crackled between them. Fulgrim, radiant with an unnatural light that seemed to seep from the very flesh, urged Perturabo forward with an impatience bordering on disdain. Perturabo's piercing gaze, honed far beyond that of even the most gene-forged Astartes, detected the sweat of unnatural luminescence glistening on Fulgrim's brow. His brother captains shared this unearthly glow, a sickly radiance, vile and otherworldly. Perturabo trusted none of them. The Lord of Iron knew betrayal was as inevitable as the turning of stars. As they approached the sepulchre's heart, the ancient power of Idris awakened. The Xenos planet, bound to the will of the chaos god Slaanesh, she who thirsts, spasmed with malevolence, unleashing its long-dormant defenders. Thousands of crystalline statues, silent sentinels of the Eldari dead, stirred to grotesque life. Their bulbous heads bled vibrant hues into glass-like forms that became terrifyingly robust. These revenant wraiths, animated by the distilled essence of countless Eldari souls, descended upon the traders in a wave of cold, precise vengeance.
Pretty cool. These they're almost like a mix between like wraithbone constructs that have gone like bad, crystallized wraith bones. Also, they could have almost even been like the Farseers who turn into crystals, but that would have still been pretty early for a bunch of that to happen. But maybe the wraithbone constructs, this weird crystallized version of them.
Yeah, that's kind of what I picture. If you've played Gears of War, when the locusts are resurrected as the, what do they call them? Locust horde, the swarm. They have all these like crystals growing on their body and stuff. That's kind of how I imagine, like, but not like on flesh, but like crystallized wraithbone constructs, like you said, Mark. Like a wraith lord, but like a bunch of jagged crystals like all over.
Yeah, like randomly too, like because it's like this chaos mutation almost. So yeah, it's not just like
Is that
like
Gears of War
cool.
4 or 5?
Gears 4 and 5 thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I only played the first 3. The only thing I knew from them was the Lambent.
Yeah, it stopped being good after 3. So don't worry about it. You're not missing much.
Okay, good deal. Good to know.
You know what? Okay, I can go on a whole Gears of War rant, but I'm not going to.
This is not a Gears of War Gears of War podcast.
I'll save it for my Gears of War podcast. Yeah. While Perturabo fought amidst the chaos of these unyielding constructs, Fulgrim disappeared. Realizing his brother's absence, the Lord of Iron pursued him into a colossal chamber, bathed in an otherworldly green radiance. Perturabo descended on an endless spiral towards a seething core of jade light, a pulsating nexus of distilled life force, the essence of all who had perished on Idris. The descent ended abruptly, revealing Fulgrim standing before a slender bridge, his posture exuding triumph. The hollow heart of Idris lay exposed, its core void of an unimaginable proportions. A sphere of numinous light blazed like a captive star, its radiance both majestic and harrowing. Fulgrim revealed the truth. There was no angel exterminatus. The weapon Perturabo sought was a lie, for Fulgrim himself was to ascend to the angel exterminatus. Perturabo, his patience worn thin by his brother's audacious delusions, advanced with Forgebreaker in hand, intent on silencing Fulgrim permanently. But Fulgrim, ever the serpent, uttered a single word, a syllable of a nightmare that drove Perturabo to his knees, his mind assaulted by unspeakable agony. In that moment, Fulgrim unveiled the depths of his treachery. The ornate cloak he had gifted Perturabo on Hydra Cordatus was no token of brotherhood. Its clasp, a chrome skull adorned with a golden-veined gemstone, was a chaos artifact of insidious design. The Mogatar stone, known as the Harvester, had siphoned Perturabo's strength and vitality with each passing moment. Fulgrim stood poised on the brink of apotheosis, his brother's unknowing sacrifice the final key to his ascension. As the two ascended within the blinding shaft of light, emerging into the bedlam of the sepulchre, the full scope of Fulgrim's ambition and deceit became undeniable. Betrayal and grandeur intertwined, the Primarchs hurtled towards a destiny shaped by the whims of chaos.
Man, things are getting wild here. Fulgrim really is just going all for it.
Purdy just can't catch a break. First, he gets the worst assignments from Dad. He gets in an unwinnable pissing contest with Dorn, and now he's being betrayed by the guy he's supposed to ally with.
Yeah, you just can't trust any of these Primarchs now. All of a sudden, as soon as you turn traitor once, I don't trust you. What if it's like merchant traders? So is that fine then, or are they still gonna screw you like a car dealership in?
I don't know, man. Traitor's in the name.
I mean, it depends how you spell traitor.
Apotheosis of Fulgrim. The Phoenician moved with supreme grace, casting his battered brother aside as though Perturabo was a mere trinket. The Lord of Iron was hurled across the chamber, his descent an almost balearic arc, before landing with a symphony of shattering metal and crystal at the shaft's edge. A crimson ribbon traced his fall, a testament to the grievous wound across his chest. Broken and motionless, Perturabo's body lay as though discarded, a somber tableau of defeat. Yet every eye in the chamber, traitor and loyalist alike, was drawn irresistibly to the radiant figure of Fulgrim, sensing they were to witness a moment of monumental consequence. Suspended above the fading emerald glow of the shaft, Fulgrim had transcended. The being that had transcended into the sepulchral depths were no more. What had emerged was an entity of unparalleled majesty and dread. His armor, once a masterpiece of opulent design, now shimmered with the inner vitality, as though it contained the furious energy of the 1,000 captive suns. His gaze, two endless voids of dull-like black, was no longer tethered to mortal understanding. These abyssal eyes hinted at realms of sensation and ecstasy far beyond mortal comprehension, realms reserved for those daring or damned enough to reach them. But Fulgrim's apotheosis was interrupted. Against all odds, Perturabo stirred. The Lord of Iron, his will as unyielding as the metal for which he was named, rose to his feet. The Margatar stone clutched tightly in his hand, advancing towards his estranged brother. His expression was a mask of grim determination. He extended the artifact over the shaft's abyss, his eyes searching Fulgrim's for any trace of the sibling he had once known. A glimmer of regret, a shadow of remorse, or even the faintest flicker of humanity. He found none. The Fulgrim of old had been consumed utterly, replaced by a creature whose ambition sought to eclipse the gods themselves. Heartbroken, Perturabo spoke with biting disdain, declaring that humanity had long outgrown the need for gods, and hurled the accursed stone into the abyss. The golden black gem spiraled downward, its descent like a punctuation mark on Fulgrim's unholy ascent. The chamber erupted into chaos. Bolter fire roared, and the vengeful shadows of the 10th Legion burst into the fray. The Iron Hands had arrived, blackened armored avatars of retribution, their mailed fist sigils a stark declaration of purpose. Loyalist and traitor clashed in ferocious battle as bolter fire streaked through the air like burning comets. The Loyalist charge tightened the noose of war, dragging even the two Primarchs into its center, their destinies bound by the threats of fraternal hatred and cosmic ambition. Amidst the carnage, Cherokyn of the Raven Guard moved with lethal precision. In the chaos, he seized the fallen Mugatar stone, his instincts screaming that the artifact held power that could not be allowed to endure. With the decisiveness of a predator, he leveled a savage bolter at the cursed relic and fired. The stone shattered, releasing the life force it had so greedily hoarded. Perturabo felt the surge of vitality as his strength was restored, the too parasitic drain of the stone obliterated. The bond between the two Primarchs, woven by Fulgrim's dark machinations, resonated violently. Fulgrim's transformation reached a crescendo as his armor disintegrated, disintegrating into golden motes that swirled like ash in the maelstrom. His flesh, now a molten conflagration, pulsed with unbearable heat, his form monstrous and grotesque, a testament to the price of his ambition. Dark times for Fulgrim. He's just slowly given, this is the culmination of all of it, slowly being transformed into a demon prince.
I don't know. Sounds like he's having the time of his life. In that chamber of battle.
Yeah, it's a good time for him, you're right.
Yeah, he's having the time of his life. So all the sensation and pleasure and excess and everything. In that chamber of battle, betrayal and divine pretensions, Fulgrim's moment of triumph became a harrowing spectacle, a vision of glory twisted into horror and a power pursued at any cost. Spectral flames of vibrant pink and purple danced around Fulgrim's form, their ferocious hunger only held in check by the unyielding focus of the Phoenician. The ethereal fire flickered with insatiable desire, an ever-present reminder that the slightest lapse in attention could lead to his annihilation. Yet there was no fear. His eyes, as voids of night, held a certainty. Fulgrim's path was one of inevitable perfection. As Perturabo, broken yet defiant, pushed himself upright and assumed his position, the weight of the Warhammer, roll credits everybody, Forgebreaker, settled upon his shoulder. It was an executioner's weapon, its dark history as a harbinger of death as old as the betrayal that stained their souls. Fulgrim saw it in his brother's eyes, a twisted reflection of inevitability. The tension was palpable. Perturabo's resolve was clear. The end had come. And yet the smile that stretched across Fulgrim's face was not one of defeat, but of knowing triumph. He understood his brother's hesitation, felt the cold weight of its fate, and Perturabo's unspoken grief. The hammer swung
in this scene, Fulgrim was becoming the Warhammer 40K.
This whole time. He
Yeah.
even has the Aquila symbol on him.
Yeah, I
Fucking
know.
guy.
Yeah.
It all makes sense now. The hammer swung with the force of a world collapsing, and in an instant, the Phoenician's body was torn asunder. The catastrophic impact of the blow shattered Fulgrim's mortal form in a violent explosion, a cataclysmic eruption of psychic force that ripped through the air like a supernova. The chamber, already a battleground, was flooded with a brilliant radiance, an incandescent flash that threatened to burn away sanity itself. The light was so intense it became the center of the universe, drawing all eyes toward it, while driving others into madness or blinding them completely. What was born from the explosion was not simply death, but a rebirth, a fiery resurrection born from the very ashes of Fulgrim's physical shell. At first, Perturabo could scarcely believe what he saw amidst the blinding glow. A figure, radiant and immaculate, hovered in the heart of the tumultuous light. It was Fulgrim, but not as Perturabo had known him. The perfection of the Emperor's design had been stripped away, leaving a being of raw, unbridled power. Gone were the excesses, the adornments that marred his once pristine form. What emerged was the epitome of celestial beauty and terrifying strength, as flawless as the day the Emperor had shaped him. If anybody is familiar with the Berserk manga or anime, don't really watch the anime because it's not that good, but it's like, if anybody knows who Griffith is, Fulgrim always struck me as like a Griffith parallel. So this made me think of like his transformation into a God Hand member, or, in Fulgrim's case, a demon, Primarch.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Fulgrim's body, now stripped of mortality, began to warp and transform, his once perfect form melting and remolding under the will of his soul. Bones cracked and reshaped, and muscles stretched and extended like a sculpture animated by the touch of a divine craftsman. His legs elongated, fusing into a sinuous tail, its skin rippling with scales that gleamed with a reptilian sheen, while chitinous plates formed to protect his new, more monstrous shape. A rapture of pain filled Fulgrim's features, his face a mask of exultant agony, a union of pleasure and torment so profound it could only be borne by one seeking divinity. Perturabo, helpless and despairing, stepped forward, witnessing the impossible transformation before him. This was not Fulgrim anymore. His brother had cast aside the chains of mortality and stepped fully into the realm of the demonic. What had been birthed was no longer flesh, but a being of pure soul and will, of energy and desire. Fulgrim's ascension was not just a transformation, it was a manifestation of the deepest wish of his being, an unyielding force of self-determination that had shattered all prior limits. It's funny they were talking about achieving immortality when the Primarchs are already functionally immortal anyways, but I digress.
Yeah, he wants to be able to phase through walls and fly as well. He wants it all. Slither. Have you never wanted to slither, Gerald?
No.
You fool. No. We know Primarchs aren't immortal though, because clearly Fulgrim has killed Ferrus Manus. But as a demon prince, like now, not even chopping off his head's gonna kill him.
Okay, let me rephrase the question. Functionally immortal, as in like, sorry,
They're not gonna die.
biologically immortal. So like,
Yeah.
like the lion, he slept for 10,000 years. He's still kicking. Maybe looks a little bit older, but that's about it. So, yes, Mr. Cigar Smitty, Griffith is way
Just
worse
changed
than
his
that Fulgrim.
hairstyle. It's not age.
So, Fulgrim just wanted to feel good. Griffith is a monster. You are absolutely correct. So, if you want to know why, go read the manga for yourself, because this will get us demonetized. Fulgrim's face twisted in a Fulgrim episode just bringing out the worst in all of us. Fulgrim's face twisted in excruciating ecstasy as two obsidian horns.
Another family-friendly episode of Lorehammer.
His transformation was complete. He was no longer Fulgrim, the Phoenician, the son of the Emperor. He had become something greater, something terrifying. He had become the demon Primarch of Slaanesh, a lord of excess, desire, and eternal perfection. With his ascension, Fulgrim left his brother with but one parting declaration that they would meet again. The bond between them, fractured by time and betrayal, would someday be reforged. He raised his arms in grandiose gesture, and as he did, a curtain of light unfurled from the ground beneath, sweeping Fulgrim and his Chaos Space Marines from sight. In a flash of arcane teleportation, they vanished, leaving only the echoes of their presence behind. The chrome world of Idris, already dying, began to crumble in the wake of Fulgrim's departure. The ancient Eldari world, once held together by the life force of the dead, began to unravel as the influence that had protected it disintegrated. Soon the planet would be swallowed whole by the supermassive black hole at the heart of the Eye of Terror. Across the chasm, the Iron Hands, their hatred palpable, withdrew from the dying world. They gathered their fallen comrades and retreated, knowing that no further victory could be won here. They had no intention of fighting Perturabo in the surviving encounter. Perturabo, unmoved by their departure, allowed them to flee. He then led his Iron Warriors from the collapsing citadel, and once aboard the Iron Blood, watched the death throes of Idris from the safety of his flagship. The Iron Blood stained against the inexorable pull of the Eye of Terror, the planet's collapse had begun in earnest, and the black hole's powerful gravity was swallowing everything in its wake. The Iron Warrior's fleet, though powerful, was but a momentary barrier against the inevitable. Perturabo's triarchs stood in silent vigilance, awaiting his command. They were prepared for whatever came next, but their lord had already made his decision. Forward, Perturabo intoned, his voice cold with finality. We will not turn back. We are not meant to die here. His warriors, knowing the danger that lay ahead, followed his will. The Iron Warriors' fleet plunged into the heart of the Eye, racing towards their destiny, while Perturabo's mind burned with the knowledge that one day he and Fulgrim would meet again.
Fulgrim's kind of a tool, man. He's a real traitor. Yeah, he used to get along with everyone, but now you just can't trust him. He's going to betray you. It's also cool, this kind of tie-in with him, and he battles Eldar a lot, it seems, and just like with Slaanesh hating Eldar, kind of is a nice little thing.
It's poetic.
It's like Slaanesh. Yeah, it's like Slaanesh picking his favorite race. It's like, yeah, Eldar, you birthed me, but I'm just gonna consume you now. You're just fuel. Well, the actual species I want is humanity.
Yeah. I do find it odd that, like, the whole goal was to steal Ferris's light force, and also that act of betrayal was going to be the thing that ascends him to Demon Head. But the whole process is interrupted, but he ascends anyways. I find that kind of strange.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. A little weird. What would you do to make it a little less weird, do you think?
Well, you either have to complete the betrayal, like that the act should be completed. And I know like GW would never kill another Primarch, so then like why write them in a position that they can't be in? Is my critique.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Okay.
Yeah, like sacrifice someone else that you can afford to kill then. But like
Yeah.
like
Don't
maybe-
just take this guy up to the line of sacrifice and then pull back.
right. Like,
Yeah.
Sounds like maybe they should have put Ferris's death at this point instead of on the drop site massacre.
yeah, right. It would be a lot more personal too, right? Like to be like, no,
Mhm.
we're brothers right to the very last minute versus like the
Mhm.
whole
Yeah.
sting of betrayal. Now, a lot of this lore, like this is new lore, like the whole Fulgrim killing Ferris, I believe was always old lore, so that kind of had to happen the way it did. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah,
if
because
I were
that would have messed up the whole story of Istvan 5 and whatnot.
right,
So
exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just saying, like, don't put Primarchs in situations where you're not willing to kill them if you need it for the story to progress.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you just do the thing anyways, and then, like, okay, well, then what was the point? Why did it matter?
well, that would have been one less Primarch to bring back for 40k. So
Can't
One
have
less
that as
hero-
earned profits.
well, one less hero hammer you have to Mark has to worry about. So
Oh, thank God.
The flames of rebellion. Fulgrim, the embodiment of perfection and pride, emerged from his demonic apotheosis as a being of unimaginable power, transcending mortal limitations. The first display of his newfound might occurred in the Battle of Dwell, where he answered Horus's summons, tasked with leading the Emperor's children to the Halicarnassus stars. Yet even as his name echoed through the warp, Fulgrim's journey was fraught with danger. A failed assassination attempt by the Iron Hands, led by Shadrach Medusan, and a trio of fire raptors, was met with devastating force. With an effortless flick of his will, Fulgrim obliterated one of the Loyalist aircraft, showcasing the raw psychic fury that now coursed through his demonic form. I will also say credit to Fulgrim that he was the first to achieve Demon Princehood, the best.
Yeah. Yeah.
His mission, however, was far from complete. Horus tasked him with corrupting the noble knights of House Divine, ensuring their allegiance to Chaos before the Battle of Moloch, where the War Master would attempt to enter the ancient Warp Gate and cement his position as the Chaos God's chosen champion. Fulgrim, however, was no longer merely a soldier of the traitor legions. The great game of chaos now called to him, and he slipped into the warp, allowing his legion to splinter into countless warbands, his presence more elusive than ever. Despite this, both Horus and the Emperor's children's Lord Commander Eidolon remained confident that Fulgrim's return was inevitable, that his pride would draw him back to Terra when the time was right. So yeah, it's interesting that the Legion lost him essentially to the warp. Like now that he is a warp being, he kind of loses interest in mortal affairs and gets called to the great game of chaos. And like he just kind of lets his Legion do whatever and like kind of fall apart. In 012 M31, during the Pale Stars campaign, Fulgrim briefly emerged from the warp, summoned by his Legion. He indulged in a twisted spectacle of brutality, watching as the warped Inducti fought the Salamander Space Marines, taking cruel pleasure in personally slaying their commander, Brant Hezioth. Fulgrim vanished again in a burst of psychic energy, his departure as dramatic and dazzling as a supernova. Yeah, like he just kind of fades in and out as he so sees fit. The next summons came during the
very
traitor.
cool.
Yeah. The next summons came during the traitor Primarch's gathering at Ulanor in preparation for the final assault on Terra. But Fulgrim remained absent, lost in the depths of the warp. Lorgar Aurelian, ever the devoted servant of chaos, volunteered to seek him out. Journeying through the webway, Lorgar and his word-bearers crossed into the Eye of Terror, entering the very heart of the realm of chaos, Slaanesh's domain. In the Palace of Pleasure, Fulgrim was discovered in a decadent orgy of indulgence with his consort, the Keeper of Secrets, Enkari. His mind had become so consumed.
What do you want?
Yeah, exactly. He's like, I'm busy. His mind had become.
You're welcome
so
to join, Lorgar. Come on.
Come on in. Yeah. His mind had become so consumed by the pleasure of chaos that the war for the Emperor's throne held little appeal. Lorgar's request for Fulgrim's return to Ulanor was met with disdain. The once proud Primarch no longer cared for the Emperor's cause. His desires are now far grander. Yeah, that's interesting too, that like he just kind of loses interest in like the real world and like the Emperor and like whatever, like he's enjoying like the palace of pleasure. You could not get better than that.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be such a weird transition from like being a time creature of time to being timeless and seeing time across all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also just like your brain is so porn addled that you can't like enjoy anything anymore. It's just like yeah. But
Demon
Lorgar,
warped us.
yeah. But Lorgar, relentless in his pursuit, refused to leave. The two titans clashed, their battle a reflection of the conflict within the very fabric of the warp itself. It was then that Zardu Lyak, a dark apostle, spoke Fulgrim's true name, binding the demon prince to his will. Fulgrim, now shackled by the ancient incantation, was compelled to obey. With a psychic cry, he called his legion back to him, and by the time the word bearers arrived at Ulanor, the Emperor's children had reassembled, ready for war once more. Lorgar, however, had ulterior motives. His plan was to use Fulgrim's enslavement to strike down Horus and seize the title of War Master for himself. You can't trust those traitors, man. But the Oracle Actea revealed Lorgar's treachery to Horus, and Fulgrim was freed from the binding. With his newfound freedom, Fulgrim tasted the sweetness of revenge, savoring the blood of his former captor, Lorgar, as the word-bearer's Primarch was cast out of Horus's presence. It is interesting, too, that Lorgar and Fulgrim, like, it's kind of a mirroring of back when Fulgrim first got possessed, right? Lorgar was one to, like, actually strike at him and stuff, and now, once again, you see him trying to bind and fight against Fulgrim.
Yeah, another thing I've been noticing too that's been happening a lot is Fulgrim. He fights against other traitors more so than like loyalists. I can name a lot of campaigns with traitor legions with fighting loyalists, but he kind of just seems to be doing what he wants to, not too involved. And every time he does get involved, it's like he's sacrificing Portorabo, killing Ferrus Manus, or like, fucking on Logar,
Just does what he wants, man. Let the man be.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter if you're a traitor side or the loyalist side. Like, look out.
Fulgrim's playing his own game. Yeah. Fulgrim, now fully aware of his power and purpose, pledged himself to Horus once more, his pride shining brighter than ever. The Emperor's children would see the Siege of Terra through to its bitter end. As the final stages of the Solar War unfolded, Fulgrim took his place aboard his flagship, the Pride of the Emperor, as part of the mighty traitor fleet moving to claim the throne world. His presence like a beacon of pride and ruin that would herald the ultimate destruction of the Imperium.
So, other than for the drop site massacre, yeah, him and his legion really didn't do anything decisive during the Horus Heresy.
Yeah. And his legion is like just running off, they're fighting loyalists, but they're just like kind of doing their own thing with it. They're not like a united front or doing like tactical decisions. Like, they're just, again, their minds are so warped and like pleasure seeking that just like whatever catches their fancy in the moment, they go after.
I mean, with the kind of crap that Fulgrim has done, especially to like Perturabo, who I know when we get to him, you can easily say he hard carried the heresy, like, and then just like basically doing what he wants to Lorgar is like this is causing more problems to the traders than it logistically needs to. So
you're not helping here, Fulgrim.
Mm-hmm.
But he does show up in time for the Siege of Terra, so let's read about that. By the time the Emperor's children participated in the Siege of Terra, all semblance of honor, decency, and even basic military discipline had been eradicated from their ranks. The once proud warriors, now perverted by the touch of Slaanesh, no longer adhered to any code but their own insatiable desire for excess and pleasure. As the siege began, Fulgrim, proud and decadent, chose to hold back, preferring instead to amuse himself with the volatile fury of Angron, Primarch of the World Eaters, and the Demon Prince of Khorne. Fulgrim would prod and provoke his brother, delighted in the chaos he caused, all the while requesting that Horus unleash him upon the defenseless walls of Terra. The perfect embodiment of arrogance and hedonism, Fulgrim's greatest pleasure was to watch the world burn at his whims. At last, Fulgrim commanded a direct assault on the southeastern region of the Imperial Palace's outer walls. Yet, even in the midst of his legion's might, he was halted by the Emperor's psychic shield, an impenetrable barrier that denied demons and war penalties entry into the Imperial Palace itself. Undeterred, Fulgrim mocked Portorabo for his refusal to embrace the delights that chaos and other opportunities it offered, All the while, the other traitor legions battered against the gates of the palace. The Emperor's children, however, were not so interested in the art of warfare. They descended upon Terra's defenseless citizenry, a vile orgy of murder, torture, and self-gratification, indulging their every whim without restraint. The battlefield became their playground, not for contest, but for perverse pleasure, capturing prisoners solely for amusement and grotesque rituals. Yikes. Fulgrim's more tactical nature, however, was soon called upon by his brothers. Ezekiel Abaddon, first captain of the Sons of Horus, convinced the Emperor's children's Lord Commander Eidolon to pursue Fulgrim to lead a full assault on the Saturnine Gate of the Imperial Palace's inner sanctum, in an attempt to breach the gates and bring the siege to a swift conclusion. While the palace's defenders struggled to repulse Fulgrim's advance, Abaddon's intended to exploit a secret passage under the Saturnine Gate, leading a secondary force to strike at the Loyalists' rear. Though the plan was a complex one, Fulgrim's arrogance could not be tempered, and he chose to lead the charge in his original mortal form, rather than using his true serpentine demon shape. It's cool at this point he can switch it on and off, kinda. He still kind of has this control. When Fulgrim clashed with the Imperial Fist defending the Saturnine Gate, his demonic might tore through the Astartes with ease. But it was in his duel with Sigismund, the first captain of the Imperial Fist, that Fulgrim was briefly impressed. Despite Sigismund's martial prowess, Fulgrim's demonic power eventually overpowered him. Just as Fulgrim prepared to strike down his foe, Rogal Dorn, the stoic Primarch of the Imperial Fist, entered the fray. The two Primarchs engaged in an epic battle, with Fulgrim taunting Dorn with every word, every move, seeking to break his legendary composure. Dorn, unshakable and silent, repelled every strike Fulgrim made. For a brief moment, it appeared as if Dorn might gain the upper hand with a devastating counter. Dorn impaled Fulgrim and bowed at the blow seemingly mortal. Yet Fulgrim, the ever-embodiment of perfection, simply laughed at the pain. The wound healed almost instantly, his demonic nature rendering him invulnerable. He revealed in his immortality, declared that he was a demon. He could never be slain. But in that moment, in arrogant glee, Fulgrim was struck by the realization that Abaddon's assault beneath the Saturnine Gate had failed, dooming their chances to breach the Imperial Palace's defenses. Displeased with the failure and uninterested in the battle that he knew would lead to nothing but defeat, Fulgrim abandoned the fight altogether, his focus now drifting to a more pleasurable distractions. This is a crazy little battle between Rogal Dorn and him. Rogal Dorn is able to get the upper hand and even kind of make it worth or not worth Fulgrim's while to keep up the assault. Like, I don't think he knew he couldn't do it.
That speaks to two crazy things about the Imperial Fist. One, that Sigismund actually impressed the Primarch with his martial ability. And Sigismund is like the best warrior Astartes of all the legions. Like, he's on a whole other planet of skill. And then, like you said, Mark, that like Dorn was able to challenge Fulgrim even as a demon. This also speaks to how good Dorn is.
Yeah. Before departing, however, he left Dorn with a parting gift. Summoning his elite Phoenix Guard, led by Eidolon, Fulgrim orchestrated an ill-fated assassination attempt on his brother. Yet even this, like all things Fulgrim, was tainted by decadence and failure. During the rest of the siege, the Emperor's children ceased to care for the strategic objectives of the assault on the Imperial Palace. Instead, they turned their attention to helpless citizens of Terra. In a savage spree of hedonism, they indulged in their every depraved desire. Rape, terror, and mutilation were all but tools in their insatiable hunger for sensations and excess. They conducted grotesque experiments using Terrans' unwilling subjects for their twisted creations, and feeding their monstrous appetites. Some were turned into demon hosts to bring the legions of Slaanesh into the material world, while others were slain outright, their lives snuffed out in the pursuit of fleeting pleasure. Fulgrim, in his pride of arrogance, reveled in the chaos he had helped unleash upon the once proud world, leaving the legacy of decadence and destruction that would be felt for eons. Yeah. And like, it's funny, I didn't even really write in there what happened at the end of the siege of Terra, because I feel like Fulgrim himself didn't really care at that point. He didn't care that the Emperor and Horus met up on the flagship. There was a battle. He didn't really care who won. He was just him and his legion were doing their own thing again. There was a brief moment where they wanted to get involved, but right away they couldn't handle themselves. They just went wild.
Yeah. It makes sense. Like, I do like that that's how their legion falls, is like their failures, and that they get so caught up in their own hedonistic desires that like nothing matter. Like their objective doesn't matter anymore. They're after their own personal pleasure. I'm a little bit. I haven't fully read these final books. I wish Fulgrim had a better way of removing himself from the fight. Like, I get it. Like, suddenly he gets distracted and runs off chasing his own business, but I just wish that was more clear during the siege, or like if he was more, like if he gets struck down by Dorn and he's immortal, he can just keep fighting until Dorn eventually stops, right? Like unless it's something like where he got bored with the fighting, or they fought for like days or weeks, and then eventually he's just tired of it, so he goes off and chases his own pleasure. I just felt it's a little weak. It's always hard whenever they have to disengage these Primarchs without killing each other. It always leads to like a disappointing like resolution.
Yeah,
Like,
and it just makes Fulgrim kind of come off like the
for sure.
What's the best way to describe it? Like the flaky individual that's just like, I'm better than this, and just kind of fucks off.
Like, that would make sense for his character if it was done well, but in the sense of like, I'm just gonna let Eidolon and those guys take care of it. Like, that doesn't even. That's like a Saturday morning cartoon villain mistake where you're like, have the good guy dead to rights, but then you're suddenly, for whatever reason, you decide to retreat, right? Like, let my minions handle this. That was kind of a little bit.
Or you just get so caught up in your own arrogance that it's just like, you done goofed.
Again, though, like that would make sense for Fulgrim if it was done well, but yeah.
But it wasn't.
Yeah. But I do, like I said, after that, I do like how they just get distracted chasing Terrans and torturing, and rape is often not a topic that 40K delves into. It's like almost too, how they always like toe the line with Slaanesh of being like right up to the edge of anything kind of sexual, but they do very early on. Even it was always in the lore that they were like literally raping like the Terran populations. Like it was explicitly stated, which is
yeah.
Anything and everything.
I mean, we joke about being hedonists and excessive or whatnot, but that's just where like anything to deal with the Emperor's children, anything to deal with Slaanesh, that's where I just completely just lose any interest, because like when you take stuff like that just completely goes against like who I am in real life, and that's just I can't vibe with that. But that's just my 2 cents. But anyway,
it's hard to get. No, I get that. Like, it's hard to get that like little bit of relatableness. We can all get a little mad and relate to some Primarchs who flip a table every now and again. But yeah, there's some things that are just not quite the same level of fun to talk about.
Jax in the chat there says, to be fair, Fulgrim just did not care at that point. Dorn was just so boring at that point that Fulgrim just mentally couldn't care. Again, I haven't read the book, so maybe the book does it more justice as to like they're fighting, and then again Fulgrim kind of gets distracted and like, you know what, I just can't be bothered anymore, which again totally makes sense for Fulgrim, as long as it's like very explicit that like they're fighting, and then eventually just gets bored with it and moves on. That makes sense, and that's his problem.
It's just so anticlimactic, which is kind of good, man. It's just like that whole up and down of the druggie. They're doing it hard, it's all good, and then they slowly fall, and then at the end they don't even care, and everything's in shamble, and it's all for nothing.
No, exactly. Like I'm down for that description of it. It makes sense in character, as long as that's clear in the book. But,
and it does make sense too, Dorn being the boring one, because he's literally just like the weaponized autistic brick wall that the best Primarch. So
and like early on it says that like Fulgrim is enjoying torturing Angron because he can get a reaction out of him, right? Like he likes that. But if you're fighting someone and they're not even reacting to you like at all, it's like I could see how Fulgrim would get bored with it.
But don't worry, there's more to Fulgrim after the heresy. So, following the siege of Terra, the Emperor's children, under the leadership of their exalted Primarch Fulgrim, became agents of destruction and retribution in the wake of the Imperium's collapse. As the Great Scouring unfolded, Fulgrim and his legion, once paragons of discipline and beauty, were irrevocably transformed by the seductive allure of chaos. Their every action was marked by the same obsessive pursuit of perfection that had characterized their earlier days, but now it was perverted into a desire to destroy, to sculpt the universe into their own twisted vision. The Emperor's children carved a path of devastation across the galaxy, razing worlds and waging war against those still loyal to the Imperium with a ferocity born of unrelenting pride. Their once noble ideals had been supplanted by the intoxicating worship of Slaanesh, the Dark Prince of Excess. Guiding them to ever greater heights of hedonistic cruelty, they were not just conquerors, they were harbingers of a new age of darkness, one where perfection was defined not by creation, but by the annihilation of the imperfect. As the years passed, the Emperor's children descended further into the madness, their once pristine ranks now fractured by the seductive whispers of chaos. Fulgrim himself, transformed into a demon prince, led his sons on a series of brutal crusades, ravaging worlds with ruthless efficiency, yet also indulging in their newfound passions. The galaxy became their playground, a place where beauty, decadence, and violence intertwined in a dance of wanton destruction. The Emperor's children were no longer bound by the constraints of honor or duty. Their loyalty lay only with Slaanesh, their Primarch, now a figure of godlike power, basking in the worship of his followers. As they sought out ever greater pleasures, their legion fractured further, with different war bands vying for control and supremacy, each led by those who sought to outdo one another in their devotion to the Dark Prince. And yet, despite this descent into chaos, Fulgrim remained an unshakable force. His pride, once that of a noble leader, now a terrifying and charismatic presence that inspired both fear and admiration.
Yeah, so they kind of, after the traders left Terra, they kind of just disbanded a little bit, went their own way, did their own kind of crusades. Fulgrim led them a couple times, but ultimately, their taste changed so quickly they can't really stay focused anymore on any projects.
Kind of like how Gen Alpha is going to be so brain addled from short attention span. Like, they just can't stick to something for any length of time.
Yeah. They do one interesting little bit, Fulgrim, and that's on M31-121. And this is kind of his last big event before he disappears or kind of just does his own thing for 10,000 years. So this is our last little bit we'll share.
The Battle of Thessalia. The Battle of Thessalia stands as a testament to Fulgrim's unrivaled cunning and ferocity of the Emperor's children. This pivotal conflict occurred in 121 M31 during the Great Scouring, when the Imperium sought to avenge its shattered glory and bring an end to the chaos that had been wrought by their traitorous brother. Driven by a seething determination, Primarch Rebelt Guilliman orchestrated an ambitious pursuit to finally bring Fulgrim to justice. His fleet, a formidable force composed of his Ultramarines chapter and 6 of his successor chapters, relentlessly hunted the corrupted traitors across the stars. For a time, it seemed as though Guilliman's objective was within his grasp. His fleet tracked Fulgrim to Zolko, where a bloody clash ensued. Yet the traitors escaped and proved to be a mere ruse, a masterstroke of deception that would lead the loyalists into a deadly trap. As Guilliman's forces neared the world of Thessalia, Fulgrim's Emperor's children's fleet, fresh from their ambush, trapped the loyalists between them and the planet's defenses. A ferocious battle ensued, with Guilliman's flagship, the Gauntlet of Power, engaging Fulgrim's Pride of the Emperor. A decisive barrage from the Gauntlet tore through the Pride's void shield, offering a brief opening for Guilliman. Leading a strike force of 100 Ultramarines and elite units from the successor chapters, Guilliman initiated a desperate teleportation strike against the Pride of the Emperor in a bid to seize victory.
Yeah, this is a cool time too during the Great Scouring. The Horus Heresy's been won. The Imperium did win that war, and now you get this aftermath where the traitors are still harassing you at every angle, or you hear rumors of them over there, and you're like, we gotta go fuck those guys up before they do something awful. And you get this cool battle where there's still these mythic Primarchs in the universe doing things, and they happen to meet each other.
Yeah, and in this case, Guilliman's like actively hunting. Like, he hears rumors, oh, Fulgrim's in this sector. Oh, he's over here now. He's like trying to hunt them specifically. And there's echoes too of this, like boarding the flagship of the Emperor, boarding the flagship with Horus too. It's like a desperate gambit. Upon boarding the Pride, Guilliman advanced with his suzerain and victorious. 50 warriors from the first company led by Captain Andros, and 50 from the second company under Captain Thiel. Their mission was clear: confront Fulgrim. However, as Gulliman's forces made their way through the triumphal way, they encountered resistance. The chapter master Ludon and Corvo reported heavy opposition from the Emperor's children as they fought to disable the pride of the Emperor. Gulliman, unwilling to risk his fleet, made the fateful decision to confront Fulgrim alone in the Heliopolis, hoping to distract his brother long enough to cripple the traitor's flagship. Andros and Thiel, ever the loyal captains, protested vehemently, sensing the pride that fueled Gulliman's decision. They accused him of seeking personal vengeance rather than strategic advantage. Yet Gulliman, unwavering, assured them that if the fight turned against him, he would call upon their aid. Thus, with great resolve, Gulliman entered the Heliopolis, where he would soon be confronted by Fulgrim himself. The two brothers, once united in purpose, now stood as bitter enemies. Fulgrim, ever the master of persuasion, sought to sway Gulliman to the worship of chaos, but the Ultramarines' Primarch refused. The clash that followed was swift and brutal. Fulgrim, empowered by the warp, swiftly gained the upper hand. Gulliman, realizing he was outmatched, called for reinforcements. But as his loyal captains and warriors rushed to his aid, Fulgrim revealed his hand, summoning an ambush of Emperor's children from the shadows. The battle raged around them, but Fulgrim's strength was overwhelming. With a brutal strike from his poisoned blade, Fulgrim slit Gulliman's throat, his victory complete. As Gulliman lay dying, he asked how Fulgrim had been able to wound him so fatally. Fulgrim, with cold satisfaction, revealed that his warp-infused eyes had seen the scar that Corfarion's anathema had left upon Gulliman during the Battle of Calth, a wound that had never fully healed. With Gulliman collapsing, his body teleported back to safety aboard the Gauntlet of Power, leaving behind the carnage of his fallen warriors. The surviving Ultramarines and their captains managed a hasty retreat, but the damage had been done. Fulgrim's victory at Thessalia was a crushing blow to the Imperium. His forces proceeded to massacre Gulliman's fleet, and the Gauntlet of Power was among the few ships to escape the wrath of the Emperor's children. For his triumph, Slaanesh bestowed upon Fulgrim a new world, Calyx, a demon world, to rule as his own. Yet, as was his nature, Fulgrim quickly grew bored with the legion. Grown bored with the legion that had once been his pride. Abandoning them to their infighting and descending into chaos, he turned his attention to new distractions, leaving behind a shattered legion and the echoes of his once mighty glory. The Emperor's children would never be the same, splintering into rival war bands, consumed by their own lust for power, pleasure, and pain. Yeah, so, I mean, Fulgrim is pretty crazy to have killed a Primarch, like one of the first to kill a Primarch, and to at least fight Dorn, arguably to a standstill. He was bested by him, but I'm sure they could have dragged that battle out longer. And then,
Yeah.
and
I think too, even in that battle with Dorn, I don't think he was in his like full demon form, because like it talked about how he changed down to his small size again, and
right,
yeah,
yeah, exactly. And then like taking down Gulliman too. Like Fulgrim is pretty menacing. I think he's got the highest Primarch kill count.
Yeah, it's cool. He's got a bunch of cool war gear options too. Some of them personally handcrafted for him. Others he found. A wide assortment of talking swords. At this point, I think we're gonna leave Fulgrim. 10,000 years kind of go by before we see him in any serious way again, and we don't even know quite how he's coming back yet, too, which will be interesting to kind of see his character advance a little bit more. But that's kind of the story of Fulgrim, a character who started off with all the right desires and ambitions. He started off with a hard work ethic, but slowly got corrupted by one bad friend, that sword. And then he starts doing more and more egregious things, starts to like it. And it's funny, like I said earlier, like he's the traitor among traitors. It seems like he's battling or betraying by not doing, like, just imagine all the other traitor legions on Terra, and they're like, where are the Emperor's children? We're supposed to be doing this. And they're just going and murder fucking people in their lower hives. Like they're just not there for anyone anymore.
Yeah, just unreliable, and just like a drug addict, right? Like you can't trust them to do what they're gonna say, or hold up their end of the deal. Like, just they're gone. Their brains are addled. They're they're no longer able to think clearly, right? Like they're just pursuing that pleasure all the time.
Jones for the next.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's an okay Primarch. Do you guys like him? Where would you kind of rank him in general?
He was always towards the top for me. I like him more as a loyalist. Like I do like the older, non-corrupted Fulgrim, like quite a lot. He's up there for me. But I struggle. The biggest complaints I have about him during the Horus Heresy and kind of this section that we went through of his life is that whole flip-flopping of being possessed. I always felt that was really, and like that kind of happened for us as we read through the books as they were being released. So it's kind of like, yeah, he's possessed, but then no, he's not. Then yes, he is. And there was always this like back
Yeah.
and forth. And it seemed like the authors were kind of battling about whether or not they wanted Fulgrim to be in control or not of his own fall. And I always thought it was a weak
Yeah.
cop out to have him be possessed instead of making like bad decisions himself.
Yeah.
I never liked that aspect of it. I want the like I like a good fallen hero story. I love a good fallen hero story. Like
Sure.
Anakin, Darth Vader, love that. 10 out of 10. And I want that to be
Yeah.
like their fall. It needs to be the hero's fall. It can't just be like the devil made me do it. That seems like such a cheap cop out to me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But
That's some fair criticism. Like, yeah.
Mhm.
I think for me, he's always been less interesting, kind of like you, Gerald. None of the Chaos ones really speak to me a whole lot. Maybe Corn and just Rage, but yeah, sometimes these Chaos ones are a little hard to kind of get into the mindset of like,
Well, like,
okay, so great, you're gonna go
what,
skin somebody now and
what,
eat them.
I think for me, it's just Fulgrim and Fulgrim and Slaanesh. Them being what they are, them being what they represent, just does not strike that chord with me at all. I kind of agree with Christian. I liked 30K loyalist Fulgrim more
Yeah.
so because he does represent that honor, that good side of perfection. But once he drank the demon sword Kool-Aid, it was just nope. It's and then all the stuff he does after that is just nope. I lost my interest in him. Nope. But like the other trader Primarchs like Perturabo, I know when we go over him, like when we go over him, like there's some stuff you can sympathize. Magnus, there's stuff you can sympathize, even though he did a lot of stuff wrong. Rayway.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like there's some stuff that you can sympathize with some of these other trader Primarchs. I don't feel that way with Fulgrim too much. I hate to say it, but
so maybe I'm telling on myself. I feel like Fulgrim is actually the most relatable in the sense of like the way I see the way our society is set up, and decadence is such an easy trap. Comfort is an easy trap to fall into, that I wonder if like Slaanesh would be like, at least for North America, like the god of North America. Like most people don't even realize it in themselves when they're falling into that, like either pride and arrogance or into that like hedonism of like, I am gonna sleep in today and be lazy, or I'm gonna do the thing that I want to do that makes me feel good at the expense of the things I have to do or I should do to better my life, or make a better society for other people. Like I do think it's the most relatable because we live in it all the time. And I wonder if that's where people's blind spot is. There's like, oh yeah, I'm not a drug-fueled sex orgy kind of guy, but that's not all that Slaanesh is about, right? Slaanesh is about
I only do that on the weekends.
Right, exactly. Like Slaanesh is about more than just that.
Yeah,
excess.
Yeah, but it's the most memeable part of Slaanesh that always is brought up in the community. So that's where a lot of the meme lore comes in. And I know Mark hates that term, but
no, absolutely. I agree. Like, and that stuff does exist. I don't want to pretend it doesn't. But also I think like, the like hedonism is a very easy mindset for people to fall into. Comfort, maybe I will. Yeah. So that's my $1.25 opinion on that.
Ooh, valuable. I like it. You really called me to check myself there. What luxuries am I taking for granted over here?
In the jungle by the ocean.
Hedonism. Yeah. Cool. Well, I think That's that. We have time for a call, and I'll drop a link in the thing if somebody wants to call in. I should have done this sooner.
While we're waiting on the call in, what are y'all's thoughts on his 30k demon form and now his 40k reveal?
I was about to bring that up next, actually, Gerald. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Ooh.
You're welcome.
I definitely think the Forge World model of his is better, but I don't want to use the word better. I want to use a different word.
Elegant.
And I don't know what that is. Well, yeah, that might be the word I'm looking for. Yeah, just like more. There's more going on with it, and it's not that it's the 40k version that they just revealed is a bad model by any stretch. I think a lot of the complaints are around his face and his expression. I don't know if that's a sculpting issue or if that's a painting issue.
And that's a warp dust issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like all the Primarch faces for 40k have actually been a little strange. Like the lion looks like quite old and haggard. Rabote is very blocky, is the word I would use. Yeah. And then Fulgrim's just expression just seems unnatural, which you could chalk up to him being a demon prince and like that. I think in the text of our episode we said it really well of like his face is always like this mix between like pleasure and pain, right? Like this weird combination. I just think Forge World has the more artistic sculptors.
I always kind of I like both, but I think I'm in the end of the day I'm going to get the 40k one because it's plastic and not the Forge World resin, which I hear a lot of bad things about. But I do believe that the 30k demon version there's a certain elegance to it, which I don't know, but I like to think of it like since this is him and since the 40k version is 10,000 years later, this is 10,000 years of Slaaneshi hedonism, warp dust, snorting people, more warp dust. So I guess in my mind, I'm just kind of rationalizing it as like this is showcasing his degradation even as a demon Primarch. So, but
just that next step of damnation there. Yeah,
exactly. But that's my
I did find it odd that they did do two different versions of it. That seems kind of crazy that we did get.
Yeah, you just kind of dropped your thought there.
Yeah.
One thing I don't like between them is that there's a bit of an inconsistency, and like with Slaanesh and shapeshifting and whatever, you can explain it away, but the tail is very different between the models. One is a lot more serpentine, while the other one's like a lot more, I don't know, like fleshy, tentacle.
Yeah, I think it's just like the corruption's even more. He's got more of his own shape, his own darkness going on.
I just don't like inconsistencies personally, but like if you can explain
Makes sense.
Whatever. What do you guys think of the pre-corruption model?
I like it. I think it fits the elegance. Now, granted, don't tell GW, but I got a third-party version of it because I wasn't about to fork over $150 for it. And then his printed option actually came with like a mirror that you could fasten to his arms, or so he could look like he's just admiring himself in it. But yeah.
So, pretty boy.
That is, we're of the same mind. So I do like the Forge World version of them. Like I think it's a very cool dynamic pose. They capture the moment when he's like fighting with Ferrus Manus, and that you can like actually put the two models together. I love that. However, I also went with the third-party Fulgrim because I just think the posing of this one is like speaks more to Fulgrim's character, and it's the one where he's got like his cape in one hand and he's got a foot on top of like a statue.
That's
I don't know.
I think we have the same third-party model then.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
I know there's a couple, but
yeah, the one because the one I have is just like he's just kind of posing almost like a Captain Morgan type, and then you can either put like a pistol in his arm or like a mirror so that he's just admiring himself like a complete narcissist. Yeah. No,
I love that version.
Yeah. I'll get that painted eventually. Cool. Don't worry.
Yeah, me too. Me too. He's still in pieces in a box right now.
Yeah.
I also really like
safe and sound.
When people convert, who's that guy from fantasy?
Yeah.
Sigvald.
Ray and I were talking about this guy, Sigvald. Yeah, Sigvald.
Yeah. Yeah, I always like those conversions too. Sigvald, I think, very much speaks of Fulgrim's character and style too, and that new big
Yeah.
version that they came out with. I love conversions of that kind.
Another fun conversion that was talked about, Marathi from Age of Sigmar is like some giant snake elf monster. Before Fulgrim's 40k version was released, we had us in the Grimlore podcast that talked about just like basically taking off Fulgrim's head and then putting it on Marathi's body, and you would have gotten 40k Fulgrim.
Oh,
Yeah, and I like that.
nice. Yeah, that'd be cool.
She's in a super dynamic pose. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Wings spread, wrapped around like her tail wrapped around something.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a decent conversion.
Now we don't have to though because we have an official model.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know.
We got a call in here. Jack's ready. Welcome to the stage. How's it going?
Hey, everybody, can you hear me?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hey, let's go. This time
So
my mic is working.
nice.
Fantastic.
So how do you feel about Fulgrim? Has he talked you down a dark path of excess, or?
I definitely might have mixed up my sexuality a bit, but other than that, pretty good. Or the Emperor still
You're young. It'll change back. Don't worry.
young and dumb.
Or it might not.
Gotta love Fulgrim, fallen hero, as you guys said. Always like gotta love like the guy who's like, oh, I shall do good, and then ends up doing sex and drugs, just like Darth Vader.
Just like Darth Vader, yes. I think that was somewhere in his story too.
The sex for sure. We
Yeah.
know he was doing that.
Well, yeah, Padme led him astray, man.
Mm-hmm.
This wasn't
exactly.
banging senators, he would have been fine.
Yep.
He wasn't out banging senators, eh?
Should have seen the extended version of Attack of the Clones. I don't like sand, but drugs.
Yeah. What sword do you or weapon that Fulgrim uses do you find the coolest? Which one would you want? He's got a bunch. He's got like 3 different types of swords. He gets a fancy whip eventually. He's got Forge Breaker.
I mean, the fancy whip is used for other stuff, but
I
I
was gonna
gotta
say, don't
say,
ask what he uses the whip for.
It's not a weapon.
yeah, I always gotta say, the demon swords are always really cool. Like the one Grey Knight that uses it and just like has it on him as like at all times, but always uses it as like a
Yeah.
normal sword. It's like, oh, it's just so cool.
I like the talking demon swords. I'm gonna go around my house later tonight and just see what kind of demon objects I have. Oh, a demon refrigerator. It talks to me when I'm sleeping.
Are you sure you're just not schizophrenic?
See
Mark?
what kind of objects we can find. We'll find out one way or the other. That's why the tests are required.
Like the plastic knife you have just starts talking to you, just like, yeah, slice that guy's throat.
Come on, do it. Do
Go eat him
it.
Go eat him like a crew.
Yeah, what else do you have? What thoughts do you want to share about Fulgrim?
Actually, one
Jax?
thing I wanted to bring up in chat, but I want to wait if you guys caught on to it. But in one of your earlier videos, you talked about Abaddon's Black Crusades and how in one of them he fought against the Iron Hands and went after their home planet. You guys shit on it pretty bad because he brought in the Iron Warriors and he said like, oh, there was like this rivalry between the two. But then when you guys were talking about Perturabo, it's like, wait, why didn't he just bring up? Why didn't Abaddon just bring the Emperor's Children? Or GW just like write like Emperor's Children versus Iron Hands? That would have made so much more sense.
Yeah,
Yeah,
onto
yeah.
something. Because I heard a very similar thing about why aren't the Word Bearers the actual bad guys instead of the Black Legion? But that's a whole other theory for a whole other episode.
The
Coming
real
soon.
bad guys stay behind the scenes. Yes.
Aha.
Run things.
I do like when there's a rivalry and like a history and like a reason for certain legions to seek each other out or target each other. But I also like when we break away from that too. Like you don't want every fight to just be like Iron Hands versus Iron Warriors versus Imperial Fists, or like,
Yeah.
you know, you kind of
There's
want
got to
to.
be enough hatred for everyone out there, you know, for
You
all
do-
the factions equally.
You got to mix it up a little bit every once in a while.
Yeah.
But you're right. It does make sense. Like certain setups are like set up to be like specific rivalries, and then if you don't do anything with them, it's like, okay, well, that was again the anticlimactic. So
Where do you draw the line between overplaying that rivalry versus like completely missing the mark on it?
Missed opportunity is what I'm saying.
Okay, well, final closing thoughts there.
Yeah, one final thing. This Sherokin guy, he's been going at it with
Yeah.
Fulgrim. He's like I'm not sure if you guys talked about it, but he tried to assassinate him already. Like he shot Fulgrim in the
Yeah,
head and like
yeah.
he lived. And now he like
Yeah.
chased him off to like a crone world. And was like, I'll try breaking his artifact this time. And then
No good.
he takes after his father, like
Yeah, just hunting them. Lots of people are just hunting in the warp.
Shuriken has enough to have probably his own episode.
Okay.
Yeah, there's quite a bit.
Yeah, I'll have to look into him a little bit more.
There are. I won't get into it now. I'll save it for that episode. But he's one of those characters that like definitely seems to be an author's favorite. That comes with all the good and the bad that entails.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, Jax, you're totally right about the assassination attempt where Fulgrim gets shot in the head. I believe it's a needle rifle he gets shot with. That part always irked me. Not that he was successful in his assassination attempt, but that like it didn't kill him or even have any kind of repercussions. And Primarchs are so all over the map with this of like what damage they can sustain that's lethal and what they can sustain that they survive. Like sometimes a thing that shouldn't kill a Primarch lays them low, and then sometimes something that would kill anyone doesn't. So there's
well, wasn't one of Fulgrim's main things like before his fall to chaos was like he had a really advanced healing factor like Wolverine basically.
that was after he turned into a demon, I believe.
Now I could have swore there was something even before that where like he had an advanced healing factor.
I mean, all Primarchs do. Like they always talk about like how instantly their wound looks like it's healing. So I don't know if Fulgrim is superior in that matter, but you are right, Gerald. Like even pre demonhood, like he was. They're all the Primarchs are superhuman, and that's what I'm saying. It's like, it's kind of inconsistent of like what will hurt them and what won't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because like I think Angron takes on Angron gets like stomped on by a Warhound Titan. Gilliman gets like half his face like just clobbered by Demon Angron. So it's like very, like what Christian was saying, very inconsistent across the board.
One of them,
you got like 30 writers. Oh, that's bound to happen.
Yeah. Right about that.
Wordbearer's Primarch. Not Erebus.
Lorgar.
Fuck that guy.
The bitch.
Thank you. Yeah. He takes a full, I think, a Warhound like plasma blast, like point blank, and survives. So again, just speaks to like
that's some
there's no
fuckery
rules
for sure.
It just is what the story determines. Yeah.
But yeah, Sherokin, never KIA. I like to think as soon as like Fulgrim like becomes tabletop ready, there's just gonna be like that one Raven Guard guy like clawing at his walls on a ship.
Well, thanks, Jax, for calling in. See you on the next one.
Have a good one, guys.
Have a good night.
All right, so we've learned about Fulgrim. We're going to learn a little bit more about him still in the coming 2 episodes. It's going to be more about the Emperor's Children, though, but you can't talk about the Emperor's Children without talking about Fulgrim a little bit more. So up next, we're going to do the next episode is the Emperor's Children Legion edition. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Do some closing notes. Go check out Lorehammer Listen to Lore podcast. We're releasing episodes, almost up to 200. It's been a lot of fun. It's just homebrew lore. Come listen to me read. Lorehammer Listen to Lore.
And then whenever you're done listening to stuff about sci-fi, come on over to Grimlore podcast and listen to Warhammer Fantasy and other grimdark settings. We talk about stuff like Halo, Dragon Age, Destiny, and we actually did a crossover with Lorehammer and with Star Lores recently. So give all those a listen.
Yeah, and if you guys want, also check out the Star Lores podcast where we delve into the deep lore of Star Wars. And like Gerald said, like we've done crossover episodes, I think, with everyone in this chat too. So if you want to check that out, go have a listen.
Cool. And special shout out to our Patreon members the last couple days, Shaksky and Lara Mongol. Yeah, very cool, very sweet to see a couple of dollars just keep piling into that Patreon fund. Like I said at the beginning, we're getting closer to doing some community contests, so go ahead and donate and get involved with what we're doing. Christian Gerald, thanks for
Every
joining
dollar
me
helps.
on this little adventure of hedonism.
Always a pleasure.
Always. I was gonna say that. Damn it.
Could do the Chick-fil-A response. My pleasure.
My pleasure.
Always
My
a
pleasure
pleasure,
to
my
serve you.
pleasure.
My pleasure to
All right,
serve your pleasure.
This is Slaanesh. We got to end this off with, oh my.
Oh my.